Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is a Wednesday. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. We'll be taking your questions throughout the show. We got qualifiers for AFCON going on right now, a top-of-the-table clash between Uganda and Burkina Faso on BN Extra. We've got World Cup qualifiers starting at noon in Europe, the first matches of World Cup qualification in Europe. We've got CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers coming up later today, and you'll be able to watch more of CONCACAF World Cup qualification than ever before. We'll get into that. You've also got Olympic qualifiers later today, although they are pretty meaningless. U.S.-Mexico, meaningless, outside of playing first or second in the other group, which is pretty much a toss-up. So, meaningless. The semifinal is all that matters when you get to that point. The game today is meaningless. Don't read anything into results. Meaningless. I think Jason Christ made that clear yesterday in his comments. Everything is about the semifinal. We've also got some TV updates. We got some injury updates and things from around MLS. We'll get into that. Mike Conti will join us at 10 o'clock. But Jarrett Smith is hanging out with us as well this morning. And Jarrett, we have the third round of the Scottish Cup drawn, and we know what could be Stephen Glass's first match in charge of Aberdeen.
That sounds exciting. What's it going to be, Jason? Because I haven't seen it yet this morning.
Good times. And I have no idea why the Skype people are super low. I will try to figure this out because Jarrett is low as well. I blamed it on John. It's not John for once, but I don't know what's going on, so we'll figure that out.
Oh, I just blame it. I would blame it on John. That's what John's here for.
No, I don't think can be controlling this, but we'll work on it. Let me answer Jarrett's question first. So Aberdeen will be playing Dumbarton in the third round of the Scottish Cup, and they will be one of the nationally televised games. April 3rd, Saturday. I know Stephen, in his interview yesterday with Red TV, was hoping that he would be able to get there and get in charge of everything very quickly. There are some quarantine rules and such.
All right. Let's see how that goes. Yesterday's was fun just because we had a team that went off at plus 2,000 beat Hearts. So if you know any Hibs fans, give them a follow because Hearts and Hibs is a pretty... It's not a violent rivalry by any stretch of the imagination compared to like the Old Firm or the Super Classico or anything like that. But they've played consistently since like 1875, and it's just a really petty rivalry. So that rivalry was built for social media when one team embarrasses itself.
That was pretty bad. That is not good from Hearts, Jarrett. I can imagine there was a lot of trash talking being had.
It was copious, I would say. That is neither here nor there. Let's see what happens with Aberdeen when they get their matchup here, and see if Glass is in charge of the first game there, and we get an idea of what he's going to have to work with, and how he can end things because they did end up on the north side of the split. So if nothing else, he's going to have, if he's taking over now, he's going to have to play the likes of but Livingston and Hibs and Celtic and Rangers. Like, cool, man, you're jumping in. Here's the top other, 5 teams in Scotland. Good luck.
Welcome aboard.
And that's not to say the top 5 teams in Scotland are like going through a murderer's row of Europe, but we went over this yesterday. When you look at the financials, it's not exactly friendly.
No, it's 1 and 2, and then it's go down a few floors, a bunch, even more, keep going. Then you get to Hibs and Aberdeen. It's a massive gap. You could take Aberdeen's squad and multiply it by 10 and be right around where Celtic's squad is valued. It's that big of a gap.
One thing if he's taking over right now, one thing he will have a shot at is chasing down Hibs, though, for third spot in the league, which would come with some European opportunities next fall.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
7.
he wants to endear himself quickly, that would be a good way to do it.
Right, it's 7 points in 5 games. That's doable, but tough because you've only got 15 points available. It is possible, but
at least one of those matchups is going to be against him. So there's
right.
your chance right there to swing it a little bit.
Yeah, you've got to beat
You're right.
Hibbs.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, you've got to beat Hibbs in that matchup. There's no way around it. Couple questions about the scrimmage today for Atlanta United. It is against Chattanooga FC, not the Chattanooga Red Wolves. Chattanooga FC is in NISA, which is the 3rd division. It's the equivalent of USL League One. Chattanooga Red Wolves are not playing today. They are in USL League One. It's 2 teams in the same city at the same level, according to U.S. Soccer. Chattanooga FC has been around for a long time. They started in the NPSL. Chattanooga Red Wolves are just a couple of years old. But they are playing Chattanooga FC today behind closed doors at the training ground. There's not going to be a stream. There's not going to be anything like that. I would assume a highlight package is put out later, maybe some pictures and such. I don't even know what time that kicks off. Could be this morning, could be early in the afternoon.
And it's just another chance for Atlanta United to get things orchestrated, oriented, whatever phrase you want to use. It's coming off of what happened with Charleston on the weekend, and you sit there and take what you learned there and try to apply the next go-around with Chattanooga FC. And it's another chance for, a team like Chattanooga FC to sit there and see how they would measure up. I know that they probably haven't had a whole lot of practices on their own leading into this one, but it's a chance for them to go up against the big boys like Tormenta did a little while ago. So it's a big opportunity for them today up at the training ground.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity for the players to be seen and to be noticed, and you never know what can happen. We've seen it with some of these friendlies where a player gets noticed that you might have missed in scouting. A player's late bloomer. Chattanooga FC might have found somebody that could be a player for Atlanta United too, for example. There's lots of different things that can happen in these, but for Atlanta United, it's not even about learning from Saturday because there's not much to learn. It's about continuing to do what you're doing. You're focusing on your principles of play here. You're focusing on your rotations. You're focusing on building up out of the back and making that second nature. You're focusing on when you lose possession, immediately trying to win it back. Those are the things you can focus on right now because you're not going to be tested in the same way you are maybe even Sunday when you face Birmingham Legion, but definitely you won't be tested like you will until you get to Costa Rica for Alajuelense, where you know how they play. They play a 4-4-2. They have consistently played a 4-4-2. You look back at their lineups, you look back at their highlights, it's a 4-4-2. That means you're going to have to make a decision going in. Do you play Santiago Sosa as a center back, or do you do what you did against Charleston quite often? And he spoke about this in his media availability. If the other team plays 2 up top, you've got to have 3 in the vicinity because you've got to have numerical superiority. But you don't necessarily have to play 3 center backs if your number 6, your holding midfielder, your defensive midfielder, your contención, if he sits, he can sit in front of the center backs as long as he is there for cover. He might pick up one of the forwards when they come into his zone. That leaves somebody else free, but you've got to have somebody free. Those are the things you're looking for if you're Gabriel Heinze and the coaching staff today. How is that recognition among certain players? Because you know what you're going to see in Costa Rica. I would be shocked just based off lineups, based off history, that Alajuelense comes out in a 5-4-1 or something. It's just not what they've done. So you're going to be prepared to face a 4-4-2. You have that in the back of your mind right now. Everything you're thinking about is preparing for that. And it's absolutely doable. And, we've seen Birmingham Legion play 2 up top. We saw Charleston play 2 up top. I don't know about Chattanooga FC. I don't know what they'll do. You're working on yourself right now. There's not a lot that you learned from Saturday that you have to fix. It's continuing to do what you're doing and continuing to reinforce it, and against other people rather than yourselves, because you're very rarely going to go 100 miles an hour against your teammates. You need to do that, and you need to do it against other opponents. That's what you get today behind closed doors at the training ground.
any idea about format or anything like that? Because we had the periods for Charleston, but I haven't seen anything come out with Chattanooga.
It doesn't matter. I haven't seen it. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the big reason we talked about it for Saturday was just because people were going to watch and they needed to understand the format. It depends. I mean, if you want to play 280 minutes, if you want to play, like 2 80-minute games to play a whole bunch of players, I don't know how many players Chattanooga FC have available right now. Maybe they can't do that. Maybe it's just 245s. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you'd like to get as much time as you can. You'd like to get as many people time as you can. But if you can't, then you find another way to get the other players activated and active today. Questions as we get caught up on the Twitch pitch before we get into World Cup qualification. Coco says keep getting reps, keep playing Machope. Machope is improving his stock right now. Machope is definitely going to be in a better position for minutes if he continues to play well. Katie Weaver asked a question. In these friendlies, does the big club have some leverage to ask the visitors to play a certain way? For example, we want you to press our back line or play with 2 up top. Yeah, they can. I mean, the other team doesn't necessarily have to do it, but they can, especially in the games behind closed doors. Because, one, you're inviting them to come get a game with your guys. You can say, hey, look, this is something we're working on. Can you do this for us? Can you give us this kind of opportunity? Can you play in this way? And Omen Gura on the Twitch pitch says that Chattanooga typically plays in a 3-5-2. So it's the rest of the shape is not what you'll see against Alajuelense, but the 2 up top's the important part. That's what you want to be prepared for. So that's good. Then you don't really have to ask them too much. If you're asking them to press a little bit more, things like that, sure, you can. It's not always easy to guarantee that happens. Teams that have good working relationships will do that for one another. And it's harder to do when there's people in the stands. It's harder to do when it's going to be streamed. In a game like this one, yeah, you can ask, and they might do it. And it'd be smart for Chattanooga to do that if they get asked to do it, because they'll get more opportunities like this. And this is good for Chattanooga, and I think that's something that gets lost in some of this when we talk about it. For Atlanta United, you're preparing for CONCACAF Champions League. Chattanooga's preparing for NISA, and this is better for Chattanooga than having an inter-squad scrimmage. This is better than playing another team at the 3rd division level. It's better than playing a local team because you're getting tested in a way that you don't normally get, and you're going to learn a lot about yourselves. Like, if you're looking back at Saturday, for example, Charleston learned a lot more about Charleston than Atlanta learned about Atlanta because they got to go up against better competition. This is good for Chattanooga, and again, like I said, it's good for the players because they're playing top opponents, and you never know who's watching those games. It's very important to be able to show well, and it's like I said, it's an opportunity for the club to say, hey, we're playing one of the best teams in the country. This is what you can get if you come play for us. You can get these opportunities. So it's big for Chattanooga, and they want to show well here. And if you're building a relationship, then yeah, if the big club asks you to play a certain way in a game like this where nobody's going to see it, so if you play in a certain way and it's not how you normally play and it doesn't really go all that well, nobody's seeing it. It's okay. You're not going to lose anything here. People in the stands, especially if it's in your building, then you're probably not going to be able to ask that question.
But yeah, that's like I said, it's another step in the process with the building blocks that Gabriel Heinze and the staff are putting together with. And the thing is, it's coming sooner than you think. And it's like you sit there and it's like, yeah, CONCACAF Champions League, it's over there. It is coming faster than you think, and it'll be here sooner than you know it.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Huh?
2 weeks from yesterday, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's you got to get stuff squared away, at least in your own mind, pretty quick. And so 2 weeks will come at you like that. And so it's you got to get everything squared away, and it's another chance to do it. But yeah, it'll be here before you know it.
J-Dub asks, any question, and also a question on these friendlies, does Atlanta United pay these smaller clubs to come to them and get beat? it's not about to get beat, and it's not like Alabama and West South Texas Technical College, because nobody cares about the score. So that part has nothing to do with it, and it's not you're paying somebody to come in so you can draw a house and get attendance. Like, there's really not a whole lot to pay. You're probably covering their expenses if you want to do that. That's a possibility. You might be feeding them when they're in town, stuff like that. But there's really not any reason to pay big because you're not making any money off of it either. So it's an opportunity for the smaller teams. Like, it's not that situation. Like I said, like nobody's going to watch this game outside of the people who are there. So it's not like Georgia State going to play Alabama, and yeah, that score line's going to be all over the world. Like, it doesn't matter in that regard. There's not going to be 70, 80,000 people watching it and maybe laughing at your program. That has nothing to do with it. So you don't have to pay them to come take an L. It's preseason, it's practice. You might be doing it just because they've got to travel down. They're probably renting buses.
You're doing them
coming
solid,
down. You're going to do them a solid by feeding them, stuff like that. But you're not going to come out of pocket with a check, in a big check or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, in college football, everybody sits there, and there are other reasons that you have these payday games. In this case, it's about focusing on you. No one's going to be seeing it and being seen. So there are other things at play as opposed to that lopsided matchup that you would see in front of 70 or 80,000 folks in college football.
I mean, Jarrett, like, after you saw a good bit of Saturday and kind of how the team looked in general, what are your questions as we're less than 2 weeks away from CONCACAF?
I guess for me, it's a matter of, how do rotations fit in? Who's showing out and where? Because we've talked about guys will be all over the field. I think we've talked about inverted wingers until we're blue in the face. You can invert, you cannot invert. You can move guys around. A lot of what you have is players with positional flexibility. How does it all fit together for different situations? And it might be one of those things we don't really see until the season starts and until we see lots of games. But how do guys fit in? Here's situation A. How do we want to look? Here's situation B. How do we want to look? Who's coming off the bench? What is their role? How are subs being used? How are people moving around on the field? And we won't get that answer today because it's a closed-door scrimmage. So that is what it is. Based off Saturday, though, like, I was excited to see guys like Machop, which, man, the comments yesterday from players, like, they don't slow down the hype train at all with Machop. Seems like he's impressing not just the fans, but some of the veterans as well. But I want to see, how do guys sit in the midfield? I mean, because of the way it was shot Saturday, we've talked about it was hard to tell what guys like Sosa might be doing throughout the play because you're not seeing a real tactical look at things with a high 50 camera. You're, looking at a slash cam that's going to cut down. So it is kind of hard to tell. I think I'm just curious, like, how guys are going to be moving around. We saw, I think, in some of the attacking sets, how guys are moving to space and kind of manipulating the space around them and kind of manipulating the back lines of Charleston the other day. Alowalense, you hope, is in that conversation as well, as like, how are you manipulating their defense when you have the ball? And I am curious to see how guys move and guys, like a Brooks Lennon when he gets forward, a Jurgen Dahm, a Jake Mulroney when he gets opportunities because of the speed you have, and not just like the straight line 30-yard speed, but there's an obscene amount of quickness as well, if you want to measure it differently, that can move well in tight spaces. So that's what I'm looking for, I think, is like not just how quickly you're moving the ball, but how quickly guys are moving off the ball and how much stress you're putting a back line under.
Yeah, there were a couple media availabilities yesterday with Anton Walks and Santiago Sosa, and it seemed like maybe there was a little bit of confusion about the way things played out, and some of it could have been just from what you could see on the stream on Saturday. Sosa consistently dropped to help in the build-up phase because that's what the holding midfielder does in the shape. That's the way it goes. It's just part of build-up. It's not creating chances from that position because you're A lot of times you're getting your touches 75, 80 yards from goal. You're not delivering the final pass, but you're involved in getting the team out of their defensive third. So your center backs, your holding midfielder are going to get a lot of touches there. Your goalkeeper's going to get a lot of touches there, and it's something that Brad Gazan will have to be involved in as well. That's typical for any team that values possession, but it's also typical for any team that plays in a positional play idea, because you don't want your wingers dropping back to try to help in the build-up. You want them to stay up high. 2 reasons for it. When you break the first line of pressure, they're in a position to be dangerous. 2, if they stay up high, what does that do to the opposition? It forces their back line to stay. It fixes them. It locks them. So if your wingers stay up high and wide, and your number 9 can drop, but also could stay up high, the center backs have to make decisions. But those outside backs for the opposition, or wing backs, depending on how they're playing, they're going to be sitting there all day long. Should I go up and try to help press? Should I stay back and make sure Marcelino Moreno, Jurgen Damm, whoever is out wide, isn't getting in behind me? And Jarrett mentioned speed. That makes it even more difficult to make that decision. So you want them to stay as high as they possibly can to fix the back line. That gives you space to operate in. But you also have that holding midfielder or the goalkeeper get involved and build up to be able to play through the pressure. If the opposing team's pressing with 1 forward, you probably don't need them. The 2 center backs can handle it with the goalkeeper's help. If they're playing with 2 forwards or they're pressing with 2, as you see teams do a lot of times, then you need 3 to play through it. You want a free man. If they press with 3 up high and 3 kind of tucked in a little bit, well, then you're going to need your 2 center backs, your holding midfielder, and your goalkeeper, and maybe another central midfielder or an outside back to come in and help. You always want one more man than the other team has to be able to play through that pressure. Because when you eliminate that line, you're then running at fixed defenders, especially that back line who has to stay at home because they're worried about the wingers, and you're able to take advantage. And then you can start to move the ball around. Then you can start to manipulate. Then you can start to make the other team move and create space and create openings. But Sosa, your center backs, are going to get a lot of touches, a lot of passes, but a lot of it's going to be far away from goal because it's involved in building up the play. It's just such an important element of the way this team plays. It's critical. So keep that in mind. Like, Sosa isn't asked to be delivering assists. Robinson, Alan Franco, when he gets here, if he gets here, which it looks like he will, not asking them to deliver assists. That's not their job. They're being asked to get out of the first line of pressure safely. That simple. Win the ball back when you don't have it, but on the ball, get out of the first line of pressure safely. That's what you're doing. Wall Pass Wednesday questions. We'll take questions for another 10 minutes or so before we get into the schedule for the day, and we'll talk TV so you know where stuff is going to be. We've had a lot of TV updates here lately. 10 o'clock, Mike Conti joins us. We'll get deeper into MLS, some of the updates from around the league, and we'll look at the schedule for the rest of the day because we've got a bunch of games in Europe and a bunch of games in CONCACAF, and we'll be going through that all day with all the other news and such. Tafka has a Wall Pass Wednesday question, and oh boy, it's a soap opera question. Chattanooga having 2 different pro soccer teams, ... competing in entirely separate leagues such that an on-the-field rivalry is hard to create and indirect ... is peak 2010 NASL-type buffoonery, in Tafka's opinion. Tafka knows that I will tear him up for that, but doesn't care. I know there was animosity for how Red Wolves got started in USL, but I say lean into that, use it to build interest, plus ... you can guarantee top attendance numbers when you have that kind of rivalry going on. Yeah, but Tafka, what you're saying is one of them would have to join the other team's league to be able to do that, unless you create a cup between the two, which would be great. But I don't see that happening because of the friction between the two. Chattanooga FC is happy in NISA for what it is, and NISA is still trying to build, I think, truly what they'll be. NISA can really fill a valuable gap for American soccer. for teams that are starting out at the pro level, teams that have done the amateur thing and are growing into this, but aren't ready for some of the standards and some of the level of expenditure that you have in USL. I mean, I hate to make it about money, but teams that have money are stable. Teams that don't have money are not stable. Is that a fair statement worldwide? I think. Here, because of all of the issues you have had with lower division teams crashing and burning, year after year after year after year after year after year after year since like 1994, there have been standards set. NISA came out of the wreckage of the old NASL, which tried to set higher standards, but then couldn't hit the higher standards that they set. NASL, if you go back and remember this, when those teams broke away from USL, they wanted higher standards because USL had teams come and go. They demanded higher standards. They got the second division standing because they promised higher standards. USL said, we will regroup and we'll be the third division. This is 2010, 2011. Then NASL, like 5 years later, couldn't hit the standards that they demanded. USL then could, and they moved up the second division. Now NASL doesn't exist. NISA has went a level down because they are I think, a really good piece here because there are teams, there are businesses that are out there, like Chattanooga, like Detroit City, who have built up great amateur teams, great grassroots teams that have outgrown the amateur league. It's too big to continue to play in the amateur league just 10 games in the summer. Okay. And Chattanooga and Detroit have both went a different route in increasing investment. They've both, sold shares. They've done things along those lines. Okay. Not every team in NISA is able to do that. Not every team in NISA has the, reach to do that. But they have to build up their businesses to be able to do a nationwide league, which I think ultimately they would be better served if they can get regional, but that's very hard to do. It costs money to do these things. And it's not good for the teams to pop up, last a year, and then go away. And NISA's already had that issue multiple times. NISA will have that early on, and that's fine. That's okay. But they have to get stabilized. Chattanooga and Detroit are two great teams to get stabilized for that league and to help stabilize the league. They've got to set their standard, whatever that is. Sustainability is the key for teams worldwide, period. But especially in this country where you're trying to build something, because I've watched it happen in markets where teams have popped in, owners have popped in, they've sold a big game, they've talked about a big game, they've had a big year, and then they close up shop because they run out of money, and then it hurts the market. It hurts the market for soccer. It hurts the sport in that city. This is something that needs to get worked out. Now, Chattanooga having two separate teams, that's a whole different conversation and a really unique one. The open soccer aspect of NISA and honestly of the United States, because if you can buy a team, you buy a team and you start a team. You don't have to go somewhere else. You can just start a team. And Chattanooga Red Wolves decided to do that. And they've went about things in a different way. And I know there's people who were with Chattanooga FC who are now with Red Wolves. I understand that. There's a place for both of them. And I think Chattanooga FC has built something special that the Red Wolves aren't going to take away. And the Red Wolves have to build their own thing that's special. And we'll see if they can do that. Because they're the ones who are the new guys on the block. They've got to be able to do that. And they've made progress in doing that. And I think they both do different things. And that's great. That's how they'll both survive. I want them both to survive. I mean, if we're going to have the conversation about how London has, I don't know how many teams you want to go through, and Madrid has, I don't know how many teams you want to go through, Chattanooga can support two different lower division soccer teams that are doing different things. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the lower divisions in the United States are still growing and sorting themselves out. As we see with NISA, I think there's, if NISA said that we want to be the first fourth division league so we can really work on growing clubs and growing new franchises, great. If they're essentially that but called the third, that's fine too. If they are the entry point for pro soccer, that's awesome. You have growing things going underneath that with NPSL, with UPSL, USL League 2, which feeds into their own structure. That's great. It's growing. But the standards for teams to survive are really important. So I hope they can find a way to do both. Grow, but also not pop up and then go away.
Yeah, I mean, over the last decade, we've seen what Chattanooga FC has been able to do. They're at Finley Stadium, and there have been championship games where Finley has been sold out. And I mean, like, more people than are there to watch UTC college football on Saturdays. You had like 18,000 people at a final a couple of years ago,
right?
With Chattanooga FC and Cosmos B.
One time,
yeah.
But that's the problem, John. And I think that's the point here. They've also had games where they've had a couple thousand people.
Yep.
You're not going to do that game in, game out, especially not at the NPSL level. You weren't going to do that. They weren't going to draw 18,000 on a Wednesday for Georgia Revolution come into town or Knoxville Force come into town. You're not. For a final, absolutely. But what is the regular average? Those are the things that are going to be sustainability. Having a big crowd one time, I mean, and Silverbacks went through it at a higher level and a much higher budget. And they had a big crowd for Soccer Bowl. And they had games where they had 1,000 people. I mean, it's... What are you doing more of?
Yeah, it's what you're looking for. The consistency and sustainability is what you're hunting for here.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, I hear that, and that was a great night for soccer in Chattanooga, but that's not every night. What's the average night is the question. And it's very good because of what Chattanooga FC has built. It's very, very good. But now you're at a level, you were doing that where you weren't paying players, you had a smaller staff, a lot of volunteers, because it was an amateur team. Now you're a professional team. Now you're signing players to contracts. Now you're having to do more things. That blows that budget up in a big way. Now, can you draw more fans to account for the increased budget? These are the things that come up at this level now.
Yeah, and with Red Wolves, we're seeing the early investment that they're looking at with building a stadium right there right there on the flip side of the state line as you're driving north. You can't miss it as you're heading north from Atlanta and northwest Georgia, and you're heading into downtown Chattanooga. It is right there off the interstate, and so they're building the infrastructure and the whole notion of mixed use and things like that. So you're seeing the investment that Red Wolves are putting into where they want to be to try to get their foothold going. And so, I want to see the growth of both because it's good for the game. But, you're seeing these two teams take different paths right now. And it's, like I said, I just want to see them continue to grow, but do it solidly so they don't detract from the game on the whole.
They are. That's not really the concern in Chattanooga. I'll tell you what my concern is. They get so obsessed with one another that they miss the point. They can both build their own audience. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be take away from the other one. Right. And I know there is soap opera-esque infighting. I understand that. I don't know all the stories, but I know enough. Like, I get it. But it doesn't do Chattanooga FC any good to detract from Red Wolves. Just do what you do very well because you're the established one. For Red Wolves, it doesn't do any good to point out the other team in town. Focus on what you do very well. If you're telling people about something else, even if you're trying to diminish them, they might go check out that something else and have a better time. Do what you do and do it well, and people will find it. If there is a market for it, people will find it. It's that simple. And they both can do that. And yes, when they get drawn in an Open Cup game, it will be epic. And it will be amazing. And it will be a very exciting day for soccer in Chattanooga that both clubs would really benefit from. But we're not quite there yet. So I want them both to succeed. I want them both to be successful. I want both of those leagues to be successful because I think they have different goals. I think they're both trying to do different things.
No, absolutely. I'm right there with you in all of that. I want to see both succeed, but I think that getting wrapped up in the soap opera drama takes away from what could be a greater picture by do what you do it well, do what you do it well. Both of you go forward.
Tafka says, I felt Chattanooga FC should have gone into USL League One. They didn't want to. They didn't want to because of the business. They didn't want to join USL. They had opportunities to many times over the years. They had opportunities to join the NASL. as well. Chattanooga FC could have went pro earlier than they did. They didn't want to, which was absolutely their decision. They know their business better than anybody else. And NISA, they got a chance to be in at the ground floor and help structure a league the way they wanted to. NISA is more of a clubs running the league idea, and USL is more of a league office running the league idea. That's the biggest difference. The level of play, I think USL 1 is better overall because it's a little more consistent, but NISA has good teams in it. Chattanooga's one, and Detroit City's another. LA Force is another. It's Detroit and LA Force who are going to be in the U.S. Open Cup this year, correct?
Yeah.
Based off last season. So you've got good teams. But then you've had situations like we saw here with Atlanta SC, which nobody really knew existed. Because they had no budget and they were trying to be a professional team, and they just didn't have the money to actually do that. Philadelphia Fury, they didn't have the money to actually do what they wanted to do. It's a different world when you get into this professional level than an amateur team that might not show up for a game. That happens at the UPSL, NPSL, lower division level like that. It can't happen at a professional level. And that's the growing pains for NISA. I think NISA is going to end up being just fine because there's plenty of markets in this country that can support lower-level professional soccer. And kill it with that. Do great with that. It doesn't have to be anything different. I mean, there's some markets that can't be more than that. Fine. We saw minor league baseball work in this country, and it still does in a lot of markets, but you saw minor league baseball not worrying about pro-rel and being able to be sustainable, big-time businesses in their market, big-time community leaders in their market, for decades upon decades upon decades. Same thing can happen with NISA and with League One and with your top big UPSL and NPSL programs. Absolutely can. That's what I want to see these clubs focus on, is building their own brands and building their own markets. Other questions on the board as we get into World Cup qualifiers here in just a second. Brett Tyler asked who's most likely to take Glassy's spot with the twos. Haven't heard anything about it. I don't know if Steven is taking some of his staff with him to Aberdeen. I know he's going to have some of the existing Aberdeen staff with him to finish out the season, and he'll make some assessments. So, could Henry Apalou be a possibility there? Yes. Tony Annan was the interim last year. I think he's definitely a possibility in the short term and maybe the longer term if they want to, kind of regroup the way the academy/2 structure works. All kinds of different conversations can be had there, and I don't know where things stand just yet. You've got a month from today before the opener where Atlanta United 2 goes to Louisville. Home opener is going to be a little bit later in May, but it's coming up pretty fast. And you've had a number of twos guys train with the first team, so they're going to come into good fitness. You've got other guys training right now, but you've got some decisions to make pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it's, all of the, and I go back to what we were talking about earlier in the show. We talk about how quickly CONCACAF Champions League is going to come upon us. I mean, the USL is going to be right there too. And it's just all of the talk that we've had in the offseason about, we're waiting for schedule, waiting for games to play. Now that we're getting this stuff, it's really going to escalate, elevate, get there quickly, all that stuff. So the fact that we're actually sitting here talking about coaches and players and who's going to be around and rosters and things like that. I mean, this is really business is going to pick up, as old JR says, when it comes to all of these things. And the fact that we're getting to talk about it and actually talk about players and matches and dates and things like that. It's really where you got to get your seatbelt now because of all of these different topics coming to the fore. And it's great to have these conversations about having schedules and when things could happen at up in Kennesaw with home dates and things like that, because then you can get into the new division lineups and things like that. It's been a long time coming, at the fact that we're now starting to get these dates all plugged in. It's fun.
What else we got on the Twitters?
Taka had a question after the Johnny Infantino discussion yesterday about the Super League. Mm-hmm. And he goes, He says he's never personally done it, but how inhibiting to performance is a private chartered flight for players? Obviously better than a commercial flight that requires security checks, waiting, uncomfortable seating, delays, and such. Says he asks, because of the Super League, if nearly all your opponents in a season are 4+ hour flights, is that really so bad if they're all chartered? And even though Atlanta to Mexico City is 3.5.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's really not. I don't know why that's even becoming a huge issue, because you're not going to be, traveling every other day. I mean, NBA teams do it. I mean, yes, basketball's a whole different animal here when you're talking about subs and you're talking about just the way games play out, but they fly across the country and play the next day. I mean, you're going to be flying and probably getting there, depending on the trip, sometimes 2 days before the game, sometimes the day before, and you're going to play and you're going to come back. It's not a huge deal. Also, all your game, or almost all your games, wouldn't be like that, because you'd still have your teams nearby. I don't know how they'll structure it. I mean, that's the thing is, do you make it one massive league? Do you make it 2 divisions? Do you have only a certain number of teams in the Super League? I don't know. And that's going to be a lot of stuff to figure out. And it's going to be how to divvy up the money. And that's going to be a critical thing, because while Atlanta, your New Yorks, your LAs, Miami, like your big markets are going to be critical to TV and all of that, your Colorados aren't going to want to get left behind. Your Vancouvers aren't going to want to get left behind. So how do you make it work for everybody? I don't know. It's the same in Mexico. I mean, Club America, Chivas, your Monterrey teams with Tigres and Monterrey, like they're going to be big focal points of this, but Atlético San Luis doesn't want to get left behind. Right. Necaxa doesn't want to get left behind. Toluca doesn't want to get left behind. So then what do? I don't know. I really, truly don't know how you structure it. You're a good ways away. But the travel part of it, it's not that big of a deal. You see NFL teams fly across the country and play a lot. It's fine.
And the other comment on Twitter that catches us up along those same lines comes from Superman, and he's wondering if the fan interaction from flying commercial is a bonus or a detriment at the MLS level.
Say it again.
Superman wonders if the fan interaction from flying commercial is a bonus or detriment or at the MLS level.
I mean, the times that I've flown commercial when I've been on the same flight with the team coming back from places, it's not bad. I think people are pretty respectful. But, yeah, you get people who come up and want to get a picture, an autograph, or whatever in the airport. Sometimes after a bad loss the night before, it's not exactly what you want to do, and that happens. But, the guys are used to it. It's not ideal, but I don't think it's a huge detriment. I mean, at times it can be a little awkward, but I think most fans are pretty respectful of everything.
Yeah, I mean, understanding context of what happened. I know the fans want to have their moment with their favorite guy, but at the same time, I've seen, fans for the most part, they sit there and they understand the idea of wanting to give space, especially after losses and things like that.
Not always, but most times. And I think everybody understands the situation. Yeah, it can be a little weird, but it's not too bad. A bunch of things are coming up about TV, and I wanted to touch on the different television aspects of the latest news. So one thing we hadn't talked about is a big one in England, and we mentioned this on Written on the Pitch with Jessica Charman as it was starting to bubble up. It's even a bigger deal than we thought it was going to be. Sky and BBC are going in for an $8 million a year deal for the FA Women's Super League. It's huge. I think they have never had a rights fee before. If they did, it was extremely small. This is a lot bigger than the rights fee for NWSL, as Gwen is very excited about this. She loves women's soccer.
Yeah, should be.
This is a lot bigger than the NWSL number. And BBC will have games, over the air, which is massive. Sky Sports is putting up a lot of money to be the primary broadcaster. It's a big deal. we've wondered what TV numbers would look like, and Serie A was worried about their international rights coming up. Now, I haven't seen across the board with the international rights where it's going. £8 million, $10 million with bonuses. Okay, sorry, I had $8 million. My bad, Bern. Thank you. World Soccer Talk reported yesterday about the Serie A deal. The league was concerned about losing money on their future deals internationally. They didn't in the United States. They might in other markets, and I think they still have that fear. But in the United States, they got an increase because they got a little bit of a bidding war between ESPN and Paramount. Paramount Plus got it. So ESPN's got the rest of the season. Serie A and the Coppa Italia will be moving over to Paramount Plus for next season through the 2023-2024 season. You had a teleconference or a video conference yesterday. ESPN and CBS were both really competitive. I think I saw that allegedly Paramount's bid went up $15 million from bid 1 to bid 2 to make sure they would get it. It's big. It's a big, big deal. 3-year deal, and Serie A is, I don't think it's the second biggest league from Europe in this country, and I stress from Europe because Liga MX draws the biggest numbers. It's England, and then it's, I don't know. It's a little bit of a toss-up. I mean, Germany has grown a lot in this country. Spain will always be big with Messi there. It was bigger with Messi and Ronaldo. Can Italy jump up and be next? Now, they're going to be in a place that they'll kind of have to themselves outside of Champions League, which they'll be able to piggyback off of, and they'll have the CONCACAF and the Brazilian and the Argentine leagues, but that's going to be different time zones entirely. Will Paramount put a lot of resources into Serie A to blow it up bigger in this country? My guess is yes. Mm-hmm. And Serie A is going to need that because it's looking like worldwide their numbers are going to go down. Yeah. Because BN wants nothing to do with Serie A because of Serie A's dealings getting involved with the whole Saudi Arabia, Qatar situation, and BN feels like Serie A picked the other side. So, according to some reports worldwide, BN and their partners in different countries are like, no, we're not bidding. We don't want it. And that's going to limit the numbers. Here you had 2 bidding. Number went up. I don't think they'll get increases in most countries, most markets worldwide. And that's going to be a problem in the long term for Serie A. But in the United States, they've got an opportunity to grow with a new, engaged TV partner that might put a lot of resources to making Serie A a big deal.
All right, so add what I leave out if I leave something out when it comes to Paramount Plus. Serie A, the NWSL, obviously, Argentina, mm-hmm. Brazil, mm-hmm. Obviously Champions League, Europa League, mm-hmm. CONCACAF. Mm-hmm. Is there anything I left out?
No, that's what they have.
That is a boatload of things to put on a platform that you wanted to be taken. I mean, you did the deep dive by getting all of the coverage for Champions League, Europa League, and now you're adding all of these other things. Paramount Plus is really sitting there and wanting to get to the front of the line in all of this stuff, to be seen as an instant player when it comes to the sport of soccer, and adding Serie A, that's another big one for me when it comes to this big portfolio that they're gathering pretty quickly when it comes to soccer and soccer content.
They don't want to be seen as a big-time player in this. They are. There's no way around that. I think anybody was fooling themselves to say they weren't after they got Champions League. And what they've done with it. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is, Turner had Champions League and they didn't do anything with it. Like, people thought, okay, well, let's see, is Turner and Bleacher Report going to end up doing something with this? Are they going to be a player? Oh, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not really taking this all that seriously. You saw day one that CBS was taking Champions League and Europa League very, very seriously. Then it's like, okay, wait a minute. Now they're a player because they've got that. That was enough to get it started. You added NWSL. You added all the other pieces. Okay, those are good pieces. That's what was available. That's what you could go grab. That's good. Now you've taken something away. This is the first time that ESPN Plus has lost a big property. Now, ESPN Plus has... I thought we said Brazil, Tommy. My bad. They got Brazil, too. ESPN Plus still has a bunch of stuff. And the Bundesliga is going to be critical for them. But they've got a lot of other leagues worldwide. I think what happens, and when we speculated on this before, La Liga is on BN. BN is the one that has the biggest distribution issue of any of these major leagues right now. BN is not easy to get. It's the hardest one to get. You want Serie A? Right now, you subscribe to ESPN Plus, no problem. You want it next year? You subscribe to Paramount Plus, no problem. BN, they don't have their own subscription service. Some cable systems have it. Some satellite systems have it. Some streaming services have it. Some don't. Fanati's has it. So, I mean, I've been able to get it, but there's a lot of people who aren't as savvy. So La Liga might have slipped the mind for some because of that. ESPN Plus, in my opinion, will go very hard after getting La Liga as fast as they possibly can to replace Italy. Yeah. I think that's what they're going to try to do. And then I don't know what BN does in this country because they'll have Libertadores, Sudamericana, they'll have Ligue 1, and there's a question about Ligue 1 and their next deal. I don't know how big the market is for that, but I would assume ESPN Plus will try to grab it because they've went down the road of trying to grab as much as they possibly can. It's going to be fascinating. Burns says I still won't get Paramount. I can watch Champions League on Univision, which you can. Doesn't watch much Serie A, so it doesn't change it. Women's Super League. Burn, I don't know if Women's Super League will necessarily not be... Oh, NBCSN. It'll probably be on Peacock then. Sorry. Yeah. I would assume they'll throw it there. But, some people won't, and that's fine. Paramount Plus is going to go hardcore after this to get everything because they are a player in this industry now. And live sports is something that they're going to drive on.
Yeah, and, I mean, you were mentioning BN, and BN, I mean, it's like the Turkish Super League, you're talking AFCON, you're talking a lot of stuff that you've really got to be a hardcore fan to want to look at those things. But, I mean, of the properties that they still have, I mean, well, at the top of the list, it would be La Liga and then Ligue 1, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they have. If they lose La Liga, it's going to be hard to be viable, but they've struggled to be viable with La Liga. Yeah. So that's a huge challenge. Perfect Tommy asked if CBS would go after the Copa Libertadores. Yeah, absolutely. I think they'd go after anything South American because they have the two biggest leagues. So, I mean, that's why I think once CBS got Champions League, Europa League, it made sense for them to go grab European leagues because you can play off of that. Same thing in South America. Now you go get Libertadores and Sudamericana, and you go get the qualifiers as well if you can, and go for it because you've got the two biggest leagues on the continent. And then you can make decisions. I mean, you've got below these big players, you've got leagues that smaller, offerings can base themselves around, and it's more niche, but people will subscribe for it. I mean, now because of watching games from Ecuador, I'm going to make sure I have Goal TV somewhere because I enjoy the league. I enjoy the Uruguayan league. Sometimes they like to kick each other a lot, and sometimes they get really defensive. But sometimes I like the Uruguayan league. I'd love for Goal TV to pick up, Paraguay. I'd love for them to pick up Chile and Peru and put more on. I'd love for somebody to pick up Colombia and put those games on in English. Would love that. Would absolutely love it. Maybe that's what BN does. If they lose La Liga and they have to go, well, wait a minute, we can go grab these other smaller leagues and maybe keep subscribers through our various places. Maybe that's what happens because that's, to me, what can be the greatest benefit from this for American soccer fans is you've got competition for rights now. People who lose out are going to say, I got to go get something to make myself viable. let me go grab this property that we haven't had before, like Paramount Plus, grabbing Brazil, grabbing Argentina, and then grabbing CONCACAF, which you're going to be able to watch more CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers this cycle than ever before. It's not even close. Ever before you can watch some of the smaller countries. It's going to be exciting. They did it because they wanted content. And that's what these streaming services can do. They're able to not worry about schedules and all the different aspects that people would say, I don't want to go get the World Cup qualifiers from Africa because I'd have to then schedule it and bump the repeat of SportsCenter for the 5th time in the morning. Not if it's on a streaming service. You can just throw it up there and let people go watch it, and they subscribe to your service. So, Jarrett, where are you on the TV stuff? I know you want more Scottish games. You want all the Scottish games on ESPN Plus now that they're going to lose Serie A, right? I thought he was still there. I thought that might draw him out.
Yeah, no, he is. He's still online. He's not paying muted. Attention. Maybe he's having a battle with the mute button.
Probably. Well, he will hope that they replace the Italian games with Scottish games, which is understandable. It's very understandable.
Yes.
We'll get back into TV stuff again in hour number 2. We'll talk about the schedule for everything today because you've got European and CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. But before we get into Mike Conti joining us at 10, and we've had him waiting multiple times here lately because of all the chaos that happens around now.
Okay.
What?
No. You're not a little before the top.
You're not able
before the top of the hour.
So you want to make Mike Conti wait? That's what you're telling me.
No.
That's exactly what it is because it can't have multiple things going on at the same time, John.
That's what I'm saying. It's like in order to have Mike Conti on at 10, you're pushing the Apolinsky and Associates read forward a couple of minutes so we can get it started and have grades with Mike on.
Yes, that's what it should be. Yes, I think you're trying to make excuses for a potentially bad read. But let's see how John does.
Sure.
And tell us about Steve Apolinsky.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place you need to go, and it is Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. 3 different ways that you can get in touch with said firm. You can pick up the phone, 404-377-9191. Get a free consultation that way. Or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve at aa-legal.com. The third way to do it, you go on the World Wide Web. Address bar, aa-legal.com, large device or small, enter key, return key, arrow key, whatever advances you to the home page for Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. And you can see, in addition to all of the accolades that they have received, in addition to one that I'm going to tell you about in just a little bit, all the different cases and all of the different determinations for them as to whether or not you'd like to use them as a law firm. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. So therefore, it is 2 time zones in play, the Eastern and the Central time zones. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place you need to go. 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. Did I mention the pop-up window? I know folks like to hear about the pop-up window. Some do, some don't. So I'm kind of leaving it off to the side this time. It does exist. Low right-hand corner at aa-legal.com. So once again, wrongful death and serious injury matters. There's only one place you need to go. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com.
That was weird.
Let's try to get it in by the top of the hour.
No, that had nothing to do with the weirdness. Sometimes I wonder what planet you're on, John.
Not this one?
Yes, that would be accurate. The weirdness had nothing to do with you getting it in before the top of the hour. There was weird pauses and weird things going on.
Trying to be a little different.
Okay. -1 from Coco for stalling. That's accurate. John writing his own ad-libs mid-read is gold. Hesitations make pacing weird. -3 for whatever that face, pause, and hand gesture was. Stutter -5. This is disaster zone. Long one today. -2 for the meta commentary about the pop-up window. Laughing so hard, 10. 3.1. So food until the determinations bit. Then the pop-up window. What a disaster. 1.0345. People were worried about your health. 10.163 bonus points for gentle cupping hand motion accompanying the word received. Keep it weird, 9.9. Some people really like the bad ones, I think. Driving back from vaccination, but still going to rate. Did John die in the middle of the read? -2. Only -2 for dying. That's good. -2, too much pop-up talk. Bad, 6 out of 10.
Bad.
Grimace while searching for the right word, -1. Fast start, -1. Fast finish, -1. Ad-lib on pop-up, -1. Good ending, 5.7. Someone call 911 because John was having a medical issue. 8 out of 10. Too long, but the new camera makes up for it. Keep it weird. Keep it weird. I'm torn between giving a 10 so Jason can get the new amp. That's not going to help me get a new amp. And a 3.24. Go with the latter one, Thomas. John's been hitting up my dispensary. That's accurate. Ad-libs all over, 4.8. Wow, all I can say. 4.7, weird read, pauses, facial expressions, no description about the pop-up window. And the auto mod blocked Coco's score initially.
Oh, wow.
The weirdest read ever. Improv theater down here. Wow, that was
It's
something.
a wide range of grades there, sir.
No, John, there's not much of a range. There were like a couple people who gave you high scores because it was weird, and everybody else didn't like it because it was weird. That's not range.
So what? So then to be weird, I should do it in the Bill Walton voice going forward?
No, don't do that. Don't do that at all. Let's get Mike Conti on the line and try to bring this show back to something resembling normal. Because, man. What's up, Mike? How are you?
You guys okay?
Yeah, John's paused for some reason with a really horrible face, and I don't know what's going on the stream here. But you're good.
I was trying to process, and I was trying to figure out what ad-lib I wanted to do to be different, and apparently my facial expression
You broke the camera, John.
broke the camera, apparently.
Whenever I freeze on this platform, it's always at the worst possible moment.
John just beat you by like 1,000. Like, seriously, by 1,000.
That's hard for me to imagine, but I'll take your word for it.
I'll have to get a screen cap for you. You won't feel so bad about your freezes after seeing that one. Wow, that was amazing.
Poor John. Poor John.
He had a bad read, so I think the camera was rebelling.
See, so I get it. So I get a new camera, and now it's rebelling after only a couple days worth of use because I was trying to be different in my read and try to find some other order for my ad-libs and all of this stuff. And so now apparently I've broken everything today, Mike.
Well, let's unbreak it then.
We're going to try. We have high hopes for you, Mike. We're hoping you can lead us through this. We haven't talked really about what happened Saturday since the game or training exercise or scrimmage or whatever we want to call it. Looking back at it, what kind of like stays strong in your memory from it? What did you take away from it?
Well, again, with all the caveats of...
No one got hurt.
Yes, that too.
But
with all the caveats of it was the third day of Charleston's training camp, and it really wasn't a formal, friendly. It was like we were calling it a joint training exercise, so try not to read too much into a lot of things. I thought Machope did a great job. Looked like he fit in really well with the first team. Really took advantage of his opportunity. Thought Brandon Lamb played well. I thought Joe played very well. Barco looked really, really spry and had a couple really good attempts, including a beautiful set-piece goal and a penalty. His best shot may have been the one that he put off the crossbar. But again, it was a goal.
Goal.
Well, no, not that one.
Okay.
That
the
was
Barco
Lennon.
one. Sorry. I'm still hung up on Lennon's goal that wasn't a goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, I mean, are any of these really goals? It's a joint training exercise. I mean, heck, Charleston refused to wear shirts with numbers on them, which means we went 2 hours thinking someone scored a goal who didn't actually score a goal. I want to be so careful in not reading too much into a lot of what happened on Saturday. I think, from Atlanta United standpoint, they got to work on some things that they've probably been working on at the training ground, and they can apply it against an opponent. And I think more than anything else, they were trying to figure out maybe some personnel combinations or try to season those personnel combinations. It seemed to go okay. So it's hard, Jason. Like, it's the only thing we've seen of this preseason, and I think we want to get very excited about it and say, yeah, a lot of the stuff looked really, really good. I'm very optimistic and maybe a little concerned about X, Y, and Z. But again, I mean, it was a practice. So it's tough. Maybe when they go to Birmingham on Sunday, if we have a secret squirrel in there who was able to infiltrate that stadium, we can get some details from them. Because that might be a little more of a realistic, like full-scale friendly type situation. But then again, maybe not. I think I read something from Doug that they're doing like 2 80-minute games. So yeah. I don't know. But as John said, no one got hurt. That's huge. Looks like you have some chemistry, especially some of your newer guys. Among some of your newer guys, that's a good sign. We got to get to Costa Rica. I mean, we're 13 days away now, and I feel like we're not going to be able to learn anything super meaningful about this club until they play Alajuelense in 13 days.
See, I'm actually going to disagree for a couple of reasons, because I think everybody is focusing on the individuals when it's what did we learn. I think that we got a pretty good teaser. And it's a teaser because, again, it is a scrimmage. It is a team on their third day of training. They wilted, fitness-wise as the day went on. They weren't really able to do much in the second 60 at all because they had some guys who played a lot of it, maybe the whole 120, because they didn't have many guys there. But I think we got a good teaser of not individual performances, but the way the team will play. And the hints of shape, which is not what matters. It's the mentality. And we saw that they're going to build out of the back. We saw that they will play through pressure, especially early when Charleston had some legs under them. They didn't just boot it long. They played through it. When they were able to find the combinations generally, and when they had a slip up, they recovered. We saw that they would press when they lost the ball up high, and we saw a very high line defensively all day. We saw those building blocks, and I think you could tell from that kind of where Gabriel Heinze is on building this team. It's a work in progress, but the first month has been good in building the foundation. The basics are there. The sharpness, no. The individual combinations, because you didn't see Joseph Martinez, for example, on the field with Ezequiel Barco. Like, those things are not there yet. But the foundations of the way the team will approach the game, I think we saw some of the building blocks. And I was pleased with that. That's what I was really looking for. And I was pleased with it. I think they've put in good work in the first month, and they just have to get sharper from here on out and figure out what their best 11s are going to be week after week. And that's not going to be easy because there's a lot of talent in this group.
Yeah. No, I think all that's fair. I really have nothing to add to that. I mean, I think all that's fair. I think, again, though, I think we were kind of cautioned that, a lot of what we saw on Saturday was just, again, a training. So that's where I'm
right.
I'm just trying not to read too much into what we saw because it was a training. I mean, they could come out in 13 days and do something entirely differently. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily even rule that out.
A couple things. They
as the technical staff seems to be
to a degree, but you've got to work on things, and I think we saw the basics of the principles. But they will do something different against, or they'll have the potential to do something different against Alajuelense because they play a 4-4-2, and that's what they've consistently done. And you're not gonna just have two center backs against two forwards all day. Because, I mean, Alajuelense is going to play direct. They're going to play over the top. They're not going to try to build up play. You don't want, if it's Miles Robinson and George Campbell or Anton Walks, you don't want them or Alex DeJohn just playing one-on-one with a forward and long balls being lobbed over their head all day. You're going to have either Santiago Sosa stay deeper or play a third center back. Like, we know that'll be different, or at least there'll be a different element to it. But the basics of the way the team approaches it, because, and I think this is what we're going to have to separate the season with Gabriel Heinze. Like, tactics are different than principles. And I think tactically, we saw a pretty vanilla, basic setup and basic structure and nothing done about the opponent on Saturday. But the principles of building out of the back, pressing when you lose possession, positional play, those are there, and those are going to be there no matter what your tactics are day in, day out. If you play 3 in the back or 4 in the back or what have you, the principles don't change, but the tactics will, and the tactics will change every week potentially for this team, and that's going to be a difference. I think that's going to be a big difference, because even with Tata Martino, like, he pretty much stuck with what was working. You know, like, you'd see a tweak to the formation, but then he'd just run with that group for a while. Like, when he went to 3-5-2 in the postseason, it stayed 3-5-2. Stuff like that. But here, the principles will be consistent, but the actual game tactics, they'll change. And that's good. That's going to be a lot of fun for us to dig into every game.
I agree. Yeah, and we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot as we go. And I think, you know, not only will it be fluid tactically, but I think from a personnel standpoint, it could be fluid as well. Because, Absolutely. Like you said, you have a deep roster right now. You're going to have match compression. You're going to have guys called away from the team. So, yeah, I think, again, just as we saw on Saturday, I mean, you saw kind of a mix and match where it was maybe first choice back line with second choice forwards and a mix in the midfield. And, I think you're going to see the lineups change quite a bit, especially at the first couple weeks of the season as they try to figure out what's working best for them. So it's going to be a pretty dynamic situation. I mean, we're 1 month from today from having the home opener.
Crazy.
So in the span of a month, you're going to have, I don't know what they're doing against Chattanooga today. I don't know if it's a friendly or another joint training exercise or whatever they're going to call it. It's completely closed. Then you have Birmingham on Sunday. Then you go to Costa Rica. Then you play the return leg against Alajuelense. Then you go to Orlando, and then you play your home opener. So you've got a lot of competitions all of a sudden coming up over the next month. 4 competitions between now and 1 month from today. Not to mention all the preseason stuff you're doing. So we're going to learn a lot over the next month. And I think from a personnel standpoint, this is going to be very, very dynamic. And you hope that everyone stays healthy and that you're able to just make decisions based on what you want to do. But, it seems unrealistic you're going to be able to go through another month with no one getting hurt. So, again, I think a lot of what you saw on Saturday was great, but it might not be the same 13 days from now, depending on the state of your roster and the state of who's available and who's not.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, we saw, I guess the best way that I can describe what is you had players who had moments that, you can't really put any kind of deeper context to it, but you got to see flashes of ability from a lot of different guys. Barco had moments. Lennon had moments. Brendan Lamb, you mentioned Brendan Lamb having hit a moment there. Kubo Torres putting one in the back of that. There were a lot of different guys who had moments against Charleston in whatever it was. And I think it was good to see a lot of different guys contributing in a lot of different ways in this practice session to where folks weren't just leaning in on one guy saying, well, yeah, so-and-so had a fantastic, whatever you want to call it, a practice opportunity, whatever. There were a lot of different chances for you and Jason to mention different folks having moments in this game, in this practice session against Charleston on the weekend.
Yeah, and I think the other great thing, too, was there weren't really a whole lot of glaring mistakes. When you go into your second exercise against another team, and again, I'm choosing my words very carefully because I don't know if you want to call it a scrimmage or a friendly or what, but, when you go into only your second opportunity to get out there against someone else, you're going to expect signs of rust. You're going to expect errors. You're going to expect some misconnections. And yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of that, but nothing really super glaring. So I thought that was a really positive sign. I'm not suggesting that, these guys are ahead of where they should be at this point, but I thought for the most part it looked pretty sharp. Not perfect, but pretty good. And I think, again, that's a testament to hitting the ground running on day one on February 24th, getting most of these guys into Atlanta for intake and having them work out individually before the 24th so they'd be ready to go. But even players who have come into this camp a little bit later, like an Ibarra, like I don't know when exactly Santiago Sosa arrived, but I don't think he was here on day one. I'm not positive of that, but I don't think he was here on day one. Even those guys looked like they were picking things up pretty quickly, which is really, really encouraging to see. Because it does take time to not only learn everything that Heinze is throwing at them, but just to build chemistry. So that, I thought, was extremely encouraging. Not perfect, but pretty close. And again, consider your opponent. But in those situations where it's only the second time you've played against someone else, I think you would expect it to look maybe a little bit sloppier than it actually did look, which is encouraging for me.
Yeah, sloppy's a word that I can't even think of something from the game to put it on. I mean, there was one moment early where you were building up out of the back and you got a little dicey. You almost had a turnover, but you recovered. That's not really sloppy. That's going to happen as you're going to play out of the back. It was good. And I think when we heard from so many of the players last week about attention to detail and how involved the instructions were coming, and Santiago Sosa echoed that yesterday, a lot of communication and very clear communication from Gabriel Heinze and the technical staff. You saw the benefits of that on the field on Saturday because there wasn't a lot of confusion about positions, about where to be, about how the rotations were working. Now, you weren't being tested, which will create confusion. You understand the communication. That's step one. That's great. And you know exactly how you want to play. Now, can you do that when you're playing a good opponent who is making it hard for you to do that? That's going to be what we probably won't learn until that game in Costa Rica. And even then, it is a lesser opponent who is in great form. I think we'll really get a sense of it in Orlando on the 17th.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And Alo Alenze right now is playing great. I mean, they're running away with the league in Costa Rica. So this is a tricky draw for Atlanta United, and I like the fact that it feels like Heinze is doing everything he possibly can to give Atlanta United any kind of competitive edge they may have going down there, which is really, really good to see. He's obviously worked these guys incredibly hard. I think we saw that on Saturday. I mean, if they're going to play 160 minutes of soccer on Sunday, that's another kind of piece of evidence to that. He's working these guys really, really hard. But I think the goal is to hit the ground running down in Costa Rica and, to have every available competitive advantage for that game. Because this is a competition that Atlanta United takes very, very seriously. Kind of got a gift to get into it, but they're in it, and they're going to take it very, very seriously. By the way, I was doing a little bit of math yesterday on competitions, and we have 24 based U.S. MLS clubs, 24 U.S.-based MLS clubs. 4 are in Leagues Cup, 4 are in CONCACAF. So you've got 16 left for 8 spots in the U.S. Open Cup. Why don't we just draw from those 16 who are not in CONCACAF?
Why do you hate the Open Cup, Mike?
No, I love the Open Cup,
but you were trying to get more teams engaged in all the competitions.
Yes,
I want to be greedy.
I mean, Jason, if you are a Chicago Fire fan, what good does it do to have New York City and Atlanta United and Portland in 2 competitions and you're in none?
Be better. Be better and get into competitions.
Well, this is going to make a lot of people mad. Atlanta United was one of the lowest teams on the table last year, and they're in one of the competitions.
Yeah, but they got in from 2019.
It doesn't have to do with that.
I know. No, I mean, I with Open Cup, I would love. First off, normally everybody's in, so it's not an issue. This year is unique with that. I don't know what they're going to do, and it's a really tough spot. I don't think the other competitions you're in should keep you from Open Cup. And the reason why, for me, and this is why there's really not an answer to this. There's not a correct answer unless you are going to take the first 3 games of the regular season, which you will have differences in schedule strength for different teams, but it just is what it is. The reason why I don't think you should keep teams out of Open Cup is because it is a pathway into CONCACAF the next year. Even beyond it being a trophy and there being prize money, it's a pathway into CONCACAF, and everybody should have that opportunity. So if you have to do it on 3 games or 4 games or whatever your deadline is to determine who's in, give everybody an equal shot to get in.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I don't know how you accomplish it.
It's not going to be fair.
One of the things we've heard is first 3 games of the MLS season, you take the points. Well, Atlanta's got to play Orlando, Chicago, and then a team to be announced. That could be a harder schedule than a team that would have to play, Vancouver, Montreal, and Austin.
Yeah.
So there's no perfect way to do it. I just, again.
At least that way you have a way to win you have a chance to win your way in, even if you have a harder schedule.
But, I mean, I'm just trying to find a way to get as many teams involved in a second competition as possible without overloading teams or overburdening teams with too many matches. Now, the U.S. Open Cup is shorter, obviously, this year for MLS teams. So it's one less match to jam in there. But, no, let me be totally clear. It has nothing to do with me hating the U.S. Open Cup. I love that tournament. Seriously, I love that tournament. It's a fun tournament. But I want to win the MLS Cup more, and I think you may have a better chance of coming out of the season in a stronger position if you aren't playing every 3rd or 4th day in June.
You don't want a domestic treble, Mike?
I love a domestic treble. Sure. I mean, give me all the trophies. And if you're in the competition, go out and win it. I'm not saying they should.
4 games, I think, is what it'll be, because you'll go in round of 16, and it'll be round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. So 4 games, 4 games to get back to CONCACAF next year. I'll take that if it's offered to me.
Yeah. I'd rather get into CONCACAF by winning the MLS Cup.
Of course. Of course.
So what did you think about, since we're on that topic, what did you think about the Leagues Cup announcement yesterday, Mike?
I'm glad they're doing it. Really glad they're doing it. Really glad they're having the Campeones Cup. Glad they're waiting long enough to do it in the new stadium in Columbus. I think that's really cool. I mean, I don't think that's much of a surprise, but I'm really glad they're doing it. Really, really, really glad that they're going to try to keep this going. I think, the Leagues Cup potentially could be a really, really fun competition between these 2 leagues.
I hated to see some of the responses around the league on this. I was really disappointed in people who have voices in different markets who are in the Leagues Cup this year who are like, we don't care. We do not care. Because they don't. I don't know. Like, these are some of the people who would say they don't care about the Open Cup or care about CONCACAF or whatever. It's a competition for you to win. You're going to get to play Mexican opponents that will make you better, and it's good competition. I mean, there's prize money and whatever else to it too. That's all great as well. You have a chance to go represent your club. You should care. You have a chance to play in a game that matters. You should care, and people need to stop telling the story about it not mattering. I was fired up.
Well, the only way to make it matter is to treat it as if it does matter, and that's, I think we learned that with the Campeones Cup 2 years ago. A lot of people going into that match wanted to put the label of, it's just a friendly. Yeah, it's just a friendly. Yeah, start your reserve, guys.
I remember
Yeah,
those
but then how many
conversations.
people to this day, because of Campeones Cup, remember Jason's call on Jeff Larenowitz's goal?
No, yeah, of course. I mean, that's my point, is as soon as the whistle blew, it didn't really feel like a friendly. And El Piojo and Frank, for the most part, put lineups out there that were first choice.
And you rotated, but that's okay, too.
You rotate a tad, but, I mean, it wasn't like the B team out there for either side.
No. Yeah, it wasn't.
And the game had a feel to it. The atmosphere was incredible. You can't make something big out of thin air. You've got to treat it as if it is big. And, you know, with Leagues Cup, man, if Atlanta United were in that competition, I think Jason and I and you, John, would be doing all we could to hype that up as a really unique, fun interleague competition that means something. Now, maybe what you need to do with the Leagues Cup is put something tangible on the end of it to make it a little more meaningful. I don't know if you can put a Champions League berth on the end of this or what. But you've got to find an incentive to make these teams want to win it. If that's the way you have to get the fans interested in it.
Well, you're going to expand the Champions League, so yeah, I think you could. Like, you'd have to have a caveat. Actually, no, I think the Leagues Cup does get that in. I think that was already agreed to, if I remember right. There's been so many crazy things with all these cups having to change because of COVID and tweaks. I think they already agreed to that Leagues Cup would get you into CONCACAF when it expands in 23, when it goes back to that group stage and has that aspect of it. So I think Leagues Cup will get you in.
If that's the case, why are we poo-pooing this competition?
Because that's what we do in American soccer. We crap on anything that's new, and it's really stupid and limiting, and it needs to stop.
Yeah,
is it as big as MLS Cup? No. Is it as big as CONCACAF Champions League? No. Is it as big as the Open Cup? No, I don't think so. But it's still a trophy. It's an important trophy you can win, and it will have I think a degree to being part of that measuring stick against Liga MX, which is very, very important.
I agree. And again, I'm just glad they're doing it. I think, you know, there's been so much misunderstanding. Anytime that Don Garber says, yeah, we're looking for ways to enhance our ties with Liga MX, and everyone just automatically assumes, oh, MLS is merging with Liga MX. No, I don't think that's...
Johnny Infantino really wants it to happen now.
Yes.
The president of FIFA.
About the Super League.
The president of FIFA is talking about it. The president of FIFA, Johnny Infantino, said that if they do it, it would be great, and it would be potentially the best league in the world.
Best league in the world?
He said it. He's trying to blow it up, which I get. Yeah, he's selling it. It'd be a big league. No, it'd be a big deal, though. It would be big.
It'd be a big league, but it's not going to be the best in the world. Let's
no.
Pump the brakes on that.
It could aspire to be, though, and there's nothing wrong with that. And
it could aspire to be. Look, I mean, I am all for doing anything that's going to enhance soccer in this country. If that's the best way to do it, then I support it. But I don't think you have to go that far.
I don't either.
I think the way you do this is to have more competitions between the two leagues when there are gaps in the calendars. I don't think you have to fully tie the two leagues together. At least not yet.
Because logistically, I mean, you're talking over 40 teams and trying to figure out how to do it. And
I don't know if you can do it without Pro Rel.
Right.
And I don't want that in this country, not yet. I don't want, Jimmy Haslam in Columbus or, Meg Whitman in Cincinnati or David Tepper in Charlotte spending, $300-400 million expansion fees to get in the MLS and then have their team relegated in 2 or 3 years. You're never going to get anyone to invest in the league if that's the risk.
But if you're
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. And this I don't know. Like I go back and forth on it. Like if you're fully built out in MLS, you're not going to then be asking people to invest that money like that anymore, and you're going to have to make the money somewhere. You can make it in a competition with Mexico. I still think you could do it as a side-by-side kind of deal rather than merge the leagues. And would that mean playing more games in a calendar year? Yep. Would it mean then balancing CONCACAF and a Super League and your domestic competition and your domestic cup? Yep, it would. It absolutely would. But we've talked about it in Brazil. They play state leagues. They play a national league. They have a cup. They play in CONMEBOL competitions. They play 60 games a year or so at the top levels of their top teams, and not every player plays all of those, but some play a lot, and it's year-round. And if that's the case, and that's the way the money can be made, and you can balance it where it's not quite as ridiculous as that, and you can find a way to balance player health, financial considerations, the broadcast side of it, the revenue coming in, it could be really exciting. I don't know if you have to go full merger. I'd like to see them find an in-between step.
And then finish up with a campeón de campeones or something like that? Or
No.
No.
You need more than that. You're not just going to have the two leagues and then have them play in a final. Like you would need to have a Leagues Cup on steroids, basically. You would need to have everybody involved in the Leagues Cup, all the teams in both countries in the first divisions, play in a Leagues Cup that has a group stage that you're going to have to schedule away from CONCACAF, so you got to balance that part of the calendar. Yeah, you're going to need bigger rosters, but you should have a lot bigger money come in. You know, I mean, if you create a new competition and you sell it, and it's U.S.-Mexico, and you got Johnny Infantino saying it can be one of the biggest things in the world, the money will come in from that. And then that needs to go to the teams and the rosters and the players and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's like 10 years away, I think, to be at as big of a level as it could be. It's going to be after the World Cup. There's still work for MLS to do. Now you've got Louisville talking about expanding into MLS, which would be fascinating.
There's a slot.
Yeah, there absolutely is, and there could be two more. MLS has its own work to do. Liga MX has its own work to do. They've got to figure some things out. Get it figured out between now and the World Cup. And if that is the time to announce that you're going to do something big, be ready to do it at the end of 2026. Be ready to announce it then. And then you probably have a run-up to start it in a year or two. But that's the time frame. I mean, it's not anytime soon. There's still a lot of things to get done. But you got to find new ways to make money because you're not going to have expansion teams coming in. And, yes, that dilutes the ownership interest, but it is revenue. You got to find new ways. And you're going to sell more players, and that's great. But if you can create a competition that is worth millions and millions of dollars, find a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of millions of dollars.
Again, when coming back to Leagues Cup now, if I'm a New York City fan and I have a chance to see Cruz Azul come to Yankee Stadium on a Wednesday night, I'm going to be pretty pumped up about that.
Yeah.
If I'm an Orlando fan, they're in it, right? If I'm an Orlando fan and there's a chance that Monterrey could come to Exploria Stadium on a Tuesday night, I'm going to be really excited about that. It's a chance to play some of the bigger teams on this continent. Even if it is just a Leagues Cup / non-advancing to CONCACAF Champions League tournament, it's still a good opportunity. It's better than playing a friendly against some MLS teams play very, very random friendlies in the middle of the season just to have something going on in their stadium against, third division teams from wherever. Fortunately, that's less and less the case now, but it still does happen. I don't know. I mean, what's the negative of having an opportunity to have?
If you could have like a Cruz Azul in your barn, and go up against one of the top teams in Liga MX, you ought to blow that stuff up.
I think that's great. I think it becomes less great if teams play second choice. I think it becomes less great if the host team doesn't promote it, or sells tickets on Groupon for it or something like that. I think it's less great if players just want it to be one and done so they can concentrate on whatever else they have to do. But that's all in the control of the teams and the players.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing can be really big if the clubs and the players treat it as such, and I think they will. And I think if the clubs treat it like it's a big deal, the fans will too. I certainly hope they will.
I'm excited to see what things can look like in the next 10 years, because this part of the world, I think, will be one that really looks outside the box on this kind of stuff. I mean, you have Belgium and the Netherlands talking about merging together with their first divisions, which, I mean, it makes sense for them because they can't compete with France. They can't compete with the big four in Europe. But if they merge together, maybe they can. Then you're having a different conversation. But U.S. and Mexico merging together would, in my opinion, be bigger than that. But you can find a way to do it that still maintains the domestic leagues but enhances the clubs and the leagues. You got to deal with CONCACAF because they're going to want to expand CONCACAF Champions League because that's where they make money. You got to keep that in mind too. You've got to keep all the different people involved as happy as you can, but money will drive a lot of this, just like it will in the Champions League in Europe. They're going to play more games because there's money to be made by playing more games between top teams than playing lesser teams in your domestic league. I mean, like you mentioned, NYC and Cruz Azul, that's a bigger game than NYC and Colorado.
I agree.
It just is. Until Colorado is a big team in a big year, then that's one of the beauties of MLS is that can happen a lot faster than it is for West Brom to be an exciting Wednesday night matchup come into Chelsea. That's probably not going to happen ever in our lifetimes. But Colorado chasing a league title or coming off of a league title is far more likely in our lifetimes. So I don't know. I think it's going to be really different. I think there's going to be a lot of people around the world who get angry about it and shake their fist and say back in my day, but it could be a really wild ride over this next decade for soccer in this country, and especially here in Atlanta.
Just for the record, by the way, I'm looking it up on Google Maps right now. It's a 3-hour train trip from Amsterdam to Brussels.
Yeah, they're so close. Like, it's just it's a nothing. It makes total sense.
Like, it makes a ton of sense for them. What is a plane ride from Tijuana to Boston?
What, 7, 6?
Yeah, 6, 7, yeah.
What's a plane ride from Vancouver to Mexico City? 5 and a half.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, that's what it'll be. Like, but
it would be now again. If you're doing these as companion competitions where you're only doing 1 or 2 of those trips a year, okay, no problem. You can live with that. If it's week by week by week,
that's a grinder.
Yeah, you just have a lot of just.
I don't think it's that bad. If you're doing now, this is where doing it side by side is actually a negative, because if you're having to do your schedule where you're playing domestically and you play, and I'm sure they would structure it to where you're not going to be Atlanta and fly to Seattle to play on Saturday or Sunday, and then go home and then fly to Tijuana to play on Wednesday. I think you'd figure out ways to manage that, but if you do it side by side, you'll have more challenges with it. If you do it just in one combined league, I mean, it's no different than the NFL teams flying coast to coast, and they don't do it every week, and you wouldn't do it every week either. So It's just, I mean, it would be a weekly long trip that you just manage.
But the NFL teams are only playing 16 times a year.
Right.
Once a week.
For sure. But if you're playing 34 or 38, if it's in a combined thing, then yeah, it's more, but it's over a longer period of time too.
Yeah,
and you're not doing it every week. So
look, we all agree. I'm nitpicking here. We all agree. I mean, we want to see more meaningful competition between the U.S. and Mexico. We all agree.
Yep.
They will find a way to make it work.
Yeah, if the money's there, they'll find a way to make it work. I think that's what it'll come down to. If they've got sponsors on board to make this thing happen, they'll find a way to make it work, and it'll be fascinating to watch. We got to save some good stuff for later, Mike. We got stoppage time later today.
Yes, we do have stoppage time. 2 p.m. on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page. And I guess we'll try to recap anything that we haven't touched on from Saturday. And we'll look ahead to this coming Sunday in Birmingham. And, like I said, 13 days from now, your first competition. And over the next calendar month, you're going to have 4 very important matches. So things are going to accelerate really, really quickly, and we're going to talk about all of it.
Yeah, we'll have plenty to discuss. We'll take your questions. Maybe the whiteboard will get broken out for things. Who knows? It could get crazy today.
Yeah, the depth chart has already changed a little bit from last week, I guess, right?
I think so. Maybe a little bit. Maybe
if
a little bit.
Reports are to be believed.
Yeah, I think they can be believed in this case this time. I thought they could have been on Friday, but I think the subterfuge that our friends in South America tried to create with random Brazilian offers being leaked all at the same time from a number of different reporters. Yeah, get ready for more nonsense.
Hey, guys, look at this.
Hey, guys, tell everybody that this is happening. Is it happening? We hope it does.
Right.
Just
all right, guys.
See you in a bit.
Be good, Mike.
Make sure you're following him, Mike Conti 929 on social media. We'll get into whatever you guys want to get into from the weekend. We'll get into other MLS stuff. We'll talk about some of the other teams around the league. Philadelphia, because we talked about it yesterday with their potential injury issues. They have issues, but some of the issues aren't as bad as we thought. Some other issues are worse than we thought. Jose Martinez was one that there was a lot of concern with. It's not as bad as they thought, which is great. He's going to miss a week or two. That's great for Philadelphia. They have a huge problem with Stuart Finley because he doesn't have his visa yet. He hasn't even been there yet. He is stuck in Poland. I don't know why he's stuck in Poland. That part confuses me a bit, but okay. Stuart Finley is stuck in Poland. Kasper Shabilko's injured. Sergio Santos is injured. Corey Burke is injured. Shabilko's day-to-day. Mbaizo, the new right back, or starting right back this year with Ray Gaddis stepping away. Mbaizo should be back for the Saprissa match after international duty. He is with Cameroon. Montero is away on international duty. They should be ready for Saprissa. They've got concerns, but they're not quite as long-term as we thought they might be. So Philadelphia, happy with those reports. They are still trying to finalize the acquisition of Leon Flach from St. Pauli. He's played a little bit for them in the second division. He played a lot in their U17s and their U19s. He does have a little bit of U20 U.S. national team experience. Looks like about a $300,000 deal, which isn't too bad for St. Pauli to pull that off for a player that doesn't seem to be factoring in for them. I don't think it's bringing you down, Tommy. It's not bringing down the Philadelphia Union contingent who listened to the show. It's better than I was worried about. I thought Martinez was going to be out for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Saprissa away is going to be tough. I think Jim Curtin made it clear, like, they're going to go down and they're going to be smart and they're going to be managing that first leg, and they expect to be at full strength by the time they get to the home leg. And if that's the case, they'll be fine. Saprissa's not very good this year.
No.
Saprissa's not a strong opponent this year. Philadelphia should be able to manage the series and get through. And then you could have, if Atlanta manages their series and gets through, an Atlanta-Philly quarterfinal, which will be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because that will be super intense because it's a league opponent that you're going to be battling it out for in the Eastern Conference anyway. I would love to see that. Go ahead.
No, just Saprissa right now. I mean, there's only one team in the Costa Rican League that is above 500, and it is Alajuelense. Everybody else is 500 or below.
Well, but you factor draws in, so it's not like everybody stinks because that's not possible. Yeah. Like, somebody's got to be decent as well, but you have a bunch of draws.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And also from Jonathan Tannenwald this morning, he kind of broke it down with the injuries. Shabilko will miss the Orlando scrimmage because of his back spasms. Corey Burke has a groin injury, hasn't gotten on the field yet. Ilsinho's out for another 2 weeks or so with his calf injury. Sergio Santos is out another 3 or 4 weeks with his toe injury. So that's where things are with Philadelphia in addition.
Yeah. Saprissa's 4 wins, 3 losses, and 7 draws.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's technically over 500. Like, they got a bunch of teams in that situation, but they have a ton of draws. Mm. And this was something that Alajuelense talked about after the game. Players and coaching staff talked about in general. The competition in Costa Rica is not very good at the moment. The league's not very good at the moment. That you get a lot of teams who don't really try to play in these games, and that was something that Alajuelense was accusing their opponents of on the weekend, where they played Santos, who's number 2 in the table, and it was a pretty crap game.
It
was very stop-start. It was very disjointed. There was no rhythm to it, and Alajuelense players and staff afterwards were like, if Costa Rican teams are going to be able to compete in CONCACAF, the league has to be better. It can't be so disjointed. Teams have to try to play. And when you look at the number of draws, Alajuelense has 6 out of 14. Saprissa has 7 out of 14. Jicaral, San Carlos, 7 out of 14. Grecia, 7 out of 14. A bunch of teams with 5. Nobody has less than 4 draws out of 14 games. That's huge. That feels like more draws than any league that I've seen this year.
No.
And when you get teams who don't try to play and they play not to lose, that's what you get. A lot of meh. And that's what it feels like it is. Saprissa hasn't won in their last 5 for the Philadelphia fans. They've lost 2 of their last 3. 22 goals out of 14 games. They've given up 16. Half their games have been draws. Like they're just not all that imposing. So I think you'll be okay, Philadelphia. Miami's been busy. They did get the deal done with Kieran Gibbs. He's going to join. It looks like he's going to join in the summer, although there's been a little bit of back and forth. Yeah, he'll be on a free transfer. One of the reports had it incorrect. He's not joining ahead of the start of the season. He'll finish out the year at West Brom. I'm sure he's thrilled about that. And then he'll head to Miami. How much he plays is a question. He made his debut for Arsenal, played there 10 years, 137 league appearances. He played less than half of the games at West Brom in the championship. He's played even less than that this year in the Premier League. They also signed Kelvin Leerdam, which is a good signing, I think. Leerdam was a free agent. They got his right of first refusal from Seattle for GAM. Chris Henderson, who is the sporting director, was in Seattle, brought him to Seattle initially. Player he knows very well. He's 30. He was good last year. He'll be fine. That's a good get for them. They needed to upgrade it right back. They have. Minnesota, it looks like the purchase option at the end of the Wanchope Avila loan is going to be $4 to $5 million, which is absolutely manageable. I still think that's a really good get for Minnesota, and it makes them a potential favorite in the Western Conference. We'll see if they get this done. But by all accounts, it is progressing nicely between Boca and Minnesota to get this thing done. We jinxed a player for Chicago yesterday, Stanislav Ivanov. He had to undergo a successful knee surgery to repair a meniscus tear. He's going to miss 4 months, so that'll take him through late July. 21-year-old Bulgarian winger thought he could be one of the more impactful newcomers to the league. Well, not at least the first half of the season. He'll go on that injured reserve list. He'll be removed from the active roster. He can come back to the active roster, but it helps them roster-wise right now before the summer window, both with international slots and with just space. So Ivanov won't be available for a while. Last one on the MLS front before we get into questions and we give you the preview of everything World Cup qualifier today. Brian Schmetzer spoke to the media. He talked about how they're working on playing 2 up top, which is interesting. They've pretty much always played a 4-2-3-1 under Schmetzer. Says he's working on it. It's kind of hard to work on it right now because Raul Ruidiaz is not there yet. He's trying to get his green card. He is in Peru. Schmetzer's keeping an eye on Ruidiaz's Instagram, which is strange. But he said for now, Ruidiaz is working with Peru's national team, with staff from the national team to stay fit. Schmetzer said he'll get in touch with them before Ruidiaz returns to the U.S. to get an idea where his base level is. He's also watching Instagram, and Schmetzer said, hopefully he's doing the physical work that he shows on his Instagram account, because I've been watching Raul. I've been watching that account very closely. Schmetz, that sounds like a little bit of a creeper thing there going on.
Yeah,
you might want
to
word that a little bit differently there, my friend. Haven't had any real injuries so far in preseason. They did talk about Freddie Montero, and maybe Montero is the one who pairs up with Ruidiaz if they go to 2 up top. But Schmetzer said about Montero and about coming from Vancouver, I think some of the changes that Freddie has to be prepared for are we're a team that presses a little higher up the field than Vancouver. Our defending schemes are a little bit different. The roles and responsibilities there have changed for him a little bit. but he's eager to come back and make an impact. And Freddie, being a good young man, he's buying in and he's doing what we ask of him on both sides of the ball. So a little bit of a glimpse at what Brian Schmetzer's thinking. He might be changing things up from a tactical perspective with that shape. They might press up the field a little bit higher because they'd have two up top. I want to see what all this looks like. I still have big questions about Seattle this year. Big questions. And the fact that Rui Diaz isn't there right now increases the questions. I don't think they're back in MLS Cup. But they do this every time where the first half of the season can be a bit of a mess, and then they get it right and they make a run in the second half. I feel like the Western Conference is too good this year for that, but we'll see. Brian Schmetzer's proven everybody wrong many times. He could absolutely do it again.
I mean, how many times have we sat there and crapped on Zombie Sounders, and then all of a sudden, they're in lane 8, and they make that big rush to get into the postseason, and they make a deep run or, get to MLS Cup. We've seen it too many times not to keep that as a part of the dossier.
Questions from Twitter, questions from the Twitch pitch. It is a Wall Pass Wednesday, so you guys can take it wherever you want. We'll finish up and give you a glimpse of what you can watch today when it comes to World Cup qualifiers, and we'll talk about where things are in CONCACAF for World Cup qualifiers, because you've got a bunch of really fascinating different kinds of games in CONCACAF over the next few days. Jason Nix with a question. Off the board here, little surprised at USL Championship announcing first 2 games for Atlanta United 2 a month apart. They didn't do that, and this created a little bit of confusion. They announced the home openers. It just so happens that the home opener for Louisville, where Atlanta is the opponent, and the home opener for Atlanta are about 3 weeks apart. And then the home opener for Memphis is later in the season, about a month after Atlanta has their home opener. There should be games in between. They're not going to play one game a month. It's just because they announced the home openers. That's all. They haven't announced the whole schedule. And this was not the first 3 games for Atlanta United, too. So I think the way they announced it was maybe a little bit awkward. But I also, I don't know what's going on with Memphis. I'm assuming you've got some teams that are pushing back having people in the building as long as you can to have more people in the building. I would assume that factors into the scheduling this year in USL for sure. So maybe that's why Memphis is waiting until June. They want to make sure they can have as many people in the stands as they possibly can because revenue is nice and revenue is necessary. So that's my assumption there, because they'll have minor league baseball before that. But, if you need to make as much as you can from every game day, well, you're going to have as many that you can with full attendance as you possibly can. So back them up. Could be a fairly backloaded schedule, but that won't be game 1, 2, and 3 for Atlanta United 2. I'd be blown away if that was the case.
Right. The minor league schedule at AutoZone for the Memphis Redbirds starts on May the 4th as well. So everything seems to be kind of gravitating toward those May starts in Memphis at AutoZone.
Yeah, but Memphis 901 starts in mid-June, John.
Yeah.
That's not May.
No, that's not May.
I don't even know anymore sometimes. You're going to do that face again and get stuck. It's one of those days.
Well, Jason Nix did give a public service, by the way, by taking that face.
It's absolutely
and
a public
screen
service.
cap contest.
Yes, it's absolutely a public service. Save it for a minute. There's other actual things in the soccer world to talk about before we get to your faces. Independiente del Valle, they are now 49.9% of the ownership of Numancia in Spain. And it's pretty fascinating. And if you're a part of our Discord, El Mata Flo, our Ecuadorian correspondent, has filled you in on this. We've talked about IDV. They develop talent as well as any club in the world right now, and they will sell that talent, and they will bring the next player through. And they have a second team that they did a partnership with in Ecuador that can't get promoted to the first division, but they have a junior team essentially. So you got 2 teams of a lot of young talent. You're producing more young talent. You've got some players who maybe are ready to move on from Ecuador or move on from that second team. There's nowhere for them to go into the first team. They're not quite ready for a big sale. Maybe they slide over into Numancia now. So it's fascinating. Also, part of the deal is 10% of the money involved in this partnership will go to IDV directly to invest in the academy and to bring players from Ecuador to Numancia. So you're seeing more changes to it. And I mentioned it when we were talking U.S. and Mexico, and Byrne commented on it here. South America can be included in this to a degree in that in Europe, they're so bound by tradition that at times it's very limiting to the growth of the game. Here, you're not. I mean, you have a league that's going into season 26, and Liga MX has reinvented itself so many different times over the years that it's, yes, there's history, but it's different than England or Scotland or Germany or France or so on and so forth. You can reimagine what makes sense. You can do things differently. And now you have a club from Ecuador who is showing the world how to develop talent. That's awesome. And they're doing it differently. And they're doing it something that can be repeated. I mean, that's the thing, and that's what I wanted to hit on when we were talking about the game from Saturday or the joint training exercise. Like, there's nothing about spending a ton of money to play the right way and to develop talent by playing the right way or playing in a way that is coherent from top team all the way down to the U12s. That's not a huge monetary investment. That's a brain power investment. And yeah, you got to pay for brain power, and you got to, learn, and you got to put in the time to be ready to do all this, but that's a lot cheaper than just going and doing what Real Madrid's done or what other clubs have done, where they just go and buy talent. Like Independiente del Valle can't do that locally in Ecuador. They can't spend with the big clubs in Ecuador. They've decided to spend differently. Dallas has done that here. They've decided, we're going to invest money. I mean, I think it's a fallacy when people say that Dallas or Philadelphia don't invest money. They absolutely invest money. But they invest it to serve a larger number of players, knowing what it can produce, as opposed to spending a lot on one player that might or might not work out. Atlanta United is in a different situation with a different level of resources that can do both, because they absolutely invest in the academy and the second team and developing talent. But they can go spend the money on players that are at a different level. They can do that too. You can do things differently in this hemisphere than you can in Europe because you're not bound by old school ways of thinking at times. So it's pretty cool to see. This IDV thing with Numancia is a really big deal. And it could be a game changer outside of the Red Bull organizations and the City Football Group organizations. This is a much smaller organization doing something along those lines that could absolutely grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And it could be a game changer for Numancia as well. They get more talent developed from within the family that can push them through into La Liga, bring in more money. Then you're having a whole different conversation about what this relationship can be. It's fascinating stuff. So when you start talking about that, you talk about MLS in Mexico, you talk about all these things that are game changers, MLS teams maybe being in combo ball competitions, 1,000,001 things. It can grow and change, and it's exciting. And it's exciting that here you can respect the history, but also learn from it and do things differently and not repeat dumb things from the past because of tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you see things like this, what we're seeing with IDV and Numancia, where you're looking for ways to continue to grow your club and at the same time grow the game and have investments and send players where you're not having players stagnate, you're not having them not advance, and to think outside the box like this, to give those outlets like IDV has with Numancia. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna, I read the article and I want to see how it continues to grow and evolve, and if any other clubs decide to do things like this down the line as they're growing all of the talent from within and finding places to send it, so the club itself can continue to grow, and then you get the spider web. You get those tentacles that are put out into the game in of itself. It's going to be a fun watch.
Yes. Byrne says Jose Martinez is a big key to Philadelphia's success. He's very good. Totally agree. He was one of the best signings last year. He made that team go from a team with Harris Medunjanin, who's a good player, a good number 6, but a different kind of number 6. They were good with him it showed how good Montero and Bedoya could be with a different kind of six behind them last year. That took them from being a good team in the East to a Supporter Shield winning team. Martinez is critical, and the fact that he's only going to miss a couple of weeks, yeah, that's a big sigh of relief that you heard from Philadelphia when that report came out. That's massive.
You ain't kidding. Yep.
Katie Weaver was on a call, missed it, but yes, Miami is signing another aging Premier League player. Actually, no, that's not true. They're signing an aging Premier League player because Ryan Shawcross was not a Premier League player at the time when they signed him.
Right.
This one is in Gibbs, but he's also at West Brom, so, I mean, how much does he really count as a Premier League player because they're pretty much garbage. I just don't know what he's got, but you know, the Shawcross one I at least understood from a leadership and a veteran presence and that kind of thing. This one I'm a little concerned, but if he's not playing regularly there, I don't think he's going to walk into a lineup here. The Leerdam signing's the better signing for them. That's a good one, and he could be an important part of making that defense much, much better because my guess is he's your right back.
Yeah.
Figal and LGP are your center backs. That's much better. That's much, much better. If you had to move Figal out to right back, if you had to play Nealis regularly at right back, this is much better. So that's the smart move. Gibbs, I don't know what it will actually mean. I really don't. Byrne thinks Miami will be bad this season. I think right now they are at least one step back from a lot of the Eastern Conference. You know, you've got players who can bridge that. Rodolfo Pizarro can bridge that gap. He's incredibly talented. Matuidi is talented, but the quality and the effort was inconsistent last year. Higuain can score goals in this league or any league. They've got players who can bridge that gap, but they're not all that great in the way they're constructed because you need those players to play at the top of their capabilities. You need Gregore to come in and be very, very good. And you need somebody to be a top-flight goalkeeper, and I don't know who that is. I like McCarthy as a goalkeeper, but I don't know if he's a starter on a team that is a title contender. And Castanera is new and young, and Drake Callender is new and young, and I don't know. I'm not sold on what they've done so far. I think they have a lot of work to still do, but I don't know. And I think people are going to yell about Phil Neville, and I don't think it's about Phil Neville. I just don't think he has a ton to work with. I want to see what he does as a manager. I want to see what his philosophy is. I mean, if you go and you base it off of what he did with England's women's national team, I mean, the philosophical setup is not incredibly different than a Pep Guardiola or a Gabriel Heinze or any of that. Like, you know, the pressing wasn't as intense, but the basic idea of playing with the ball and how you wanted to use positional play, pretty consistent. And he can do that with the players he has. But does he have enough, especially defensively? I'm not convinced. I'm just not. We'll see how Neville does, though.
Breaking news sounder, please.
The way you say that is so funny. What is the breaking news, John?
CBS is adding a substantial package of English language rights to CONCACAF qualifying matches for the 2022 World Cup. The deal struck between CBS and IMG includes 6 away matches for both U.S. and Mexico men's national teams, as well as media rights to all other matches played in the region, up to 79 matches streaming live on Paramount+. The agreement begins tonight with the Dominican Republic and Dominica at 7:05, Guatemala and Cuba at 8:05 on Paramount+. Excludes U.S. home matches, which are shared with ESPN and Fox, as well as Mexico home.
Who said this was breaking news?
Bob Williams over at Sport Business.
That's already been reported. The CONCACAF deal. I think the only not breaking but kind of breaking element is that there will be games in these early rounds, but the part about the U.S. away qualifiers was talked about weeks ago.
Okay, so it was talked about weeks ago. There you go.
We've talked about it weeks ago.
So almost news that broke.
No, it's not even. It's news we already broke.
So then it's news we already broke. So there you go.
Ay, Dios mío. Okay, the part that is, I think, at least was unknown at the time, is you've got games like the Dominican Republic and Dominica tonight on Paramount Plus. You've got Guatemala and Cuba tonight on Paramount Plus. That was unclear from the initial reporting about the CONCACAF deal with Paramount Plus that was announced at the same time the Argentina and Brazil deals were. We knew the final round that they were going to get the games outside of the U.S., and I believe all of them outside of Mexico. They don't get the U.S. game in Mexico. That's already been sold, I think. But they're getting everything else. So you're not going to have to find some like random place to go watch a game on pay-per-view when the U.S. goes to Honduras, for example. You're going to be able to watch that on Paramount Plus. But they have added other games, and we'll talk a little bit more about CONCACAF here in a second. So old news brought back to the fore.
What we're here for?
Not really. Okay. KFC asked about, I was thinking you had something else, but anyway.
No.
KFC had a question about right back for the Sounders. And let me pull up my spreadsheets. They're almost done. Well, they're updated fully, but I don't have quite all the information I want on them at the moment. So Alex Roldan is the guy who played last season at right back. He is a converted midfielder. Not picking up Leerdam's deal means he's the guy. They have a homegrown who's 19, Josh Atencio, who has played 11 minutes in MLS last season. Probably not going to beat out Roldan. Maybe he has an opportunity for it. I thought Alex Roldan in MLS Cup was not up to the level. I don't think he's necessarily a right back yet. You could move one of your left backs over if you wanted to. You have Nuhu, you have Brad Smith, you have Jimmy Madranda. You could move one of them over to right back and play as an inverted. That hasn't been something that Brian Schmetzer's really shown much of a propensity to do. My guess is he keeps Alex Roldan in that role, and that's going to be a little bit of an issue, I think. I think if you're attacking Seattle down your left, their right, you're going to like to see Alex Roldan as that right back. He's good on the ball. He's just not as good defensively as you need your right back to be. He can get forward well, but I think you can pick on him defensively a little bit. So I'm not sold on it, Kefsi, but that's what it looks like right now. There's nobody else that I could really see becoming a right back in this group. I think they've converted Alex Roldan, and he's their starter. Christian Roldan's brother. Burns says, I think Miami tried the South American way. It didn't work. Now they're going British, which won't work either. The problem was the execution. They bought the wrong young South Americans. I don't even know if we know that. I think they just didn't play them. I mean, Pellegrini and Carranza were highly regarded. It's not like they went off the board and signed two young Argentines that nobody was talking about. That's not true. Pellegrini especially was very highly regarded. Carranza was on a run right after he got signed with Bonfield, and people were like, well, maybe Carranza's even the better signing here. But then you went out and you added Lewis Morgan, who's a left winger like Pellegrini, and you went out in the summer and got Higuain, who's a striker like Carranza. So you signed guys for big contracts that are young and need to play, and you blocked them. And then you had to ask Pellegrini to play on the right or play in the middle, and Carranza just didn't play much after you signed Higuain. So I don't even know if they got those signings wrong, Bernd. They didn't really give him an opportunity to turn into anything. That's a huge issue, and I think that's the bigger issue with Miami is they're not showing any patience. They didn't have a plan. That part was obvious. Or their plan didn't work. Maybe that's the case. We want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, the plan didn't come to fruition. But they didn't have a recovery plan at all. And when you go and invest in Pellegrini and Carranza with what you invested, I mean, these are two guys that their valuations, and a lot of this is down to what you paid for them. Pellegrini's valued by Transfermarkt at about $8 million, Carranza a little over $5 million. And you play Pellegrini for 1,021 minutes last year, and you play Carranza for less than 600. Why'd you go sign them? Like, they're not going to all of a sudden become better sitting on your bench. That's a bad use of your investment. And that's my bigger issue with it. And it doesn't look any better because, I mean, Carranza's not going to beat out Higuain this year. And Lewis Morgan was one of the best signings in the league. Great signing. But you blocked the guy that you spent millions of dollars on. So no real plan, or it changed, and no real adaptation to the new plan. And you're stuck. If I was a team in the league, I would absolutely be going after Pellegrini. And there's some teams that absolutely should be going after Carranza. And say, look, you guys have him. You're not going to play him. We'll take him off your hands. We're not going to give you what you paid for him. But we'll take him off your hands. Yeah. They're young. You could loan them within the league if you're Miami if you wanted to do that. It'd be better use of your investment than have them sit the bench or play out of position. They've got to make a decision here. I mean, I think Carranza's a striker. I don't think he's anything else. Pellegrini, maybe you can turn him into an inverted right winger. Maybe you can turn him into a number 10. I don't know. But you got to play these guys that you invested in, and they just haven't given them an opportunity to play. You can't make the decision on 1,000 minutes and 600 minutes. That doesn't mean they're a bust. They got to play. But Miami's just it's weird. It's very, very weird. I don't know.
No, I mean when you bring in one set of guys and you make the investment that you made, and then you bring in another set of guys that are doing the same thing, and you're spending more money than you did the first time, and you're bringing in the second group. It's stifling to me and counterproductive when you bring in a second set of guys after you brought in this initial group, and they're doing the same things. And so you pin yourself in financially, you pin yourself in strategically, and I think it would benefit Miami if you took Pellegrini and Carranza and sent them someplace and loaned them out. And because, there's no way that you're going to recoup your investment if you put them back out on the market. So try to do something and get what you can, or give them time and loan them out.
J-Dub with the best type of Wall Pass Wednesday question, because it is absolutely different. You are the talent buyer for your own first post-COVID festival, music festival. Who are your 3 headliners? I'm going to assume that I have an unlimited budget, and I want it to be pretty cool. But if I'm doing it, I'm also probably going to miss out on some of the hot new young talent, which I don't know if that'd be the best way to build a festival right now. If you want to go all new young, or if you want to get some big time massive acts that people I think would be very hungry to go see and spend a lot of money on those tickets. So I might go older and established because of the financial return. I will go with a trio of U2.
Yeah.
I will get the Killers on it because that'll get me a little younger. And who's the really big possibility to get here? And I'm not going to say something like throw a crap load of money at REM to reunite, because I would if I had unlimited money, but I also think that would be a really good thing from a business perspective right now, because you'd have a lot of older folks with a lot of disposable income who would say, oh, wow, REM's reunited. I'll pay $500 for that ticket.
Right.
But you'd have to get them to reunite. So that's where I have U2 in there. They would be my band like that. I mean, maybe Coldplay? If I'm thinking about it from a financial perspective, that would be actually a bill that makes sense musically, but would probably make you an obscene amount of money.
Okay. Wow. See, I could go a bunch of different directions, but am I trying to fill the venue, or am I trying to just put good acts out there and make a fortune with a theme?
Who's making your judge of good acts, too? Because your version of good acts might not actually be good acts.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it would be. No, I agree with you.
You're gonna pick stuff that I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm not buying that ticket. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with you on U2. I like that idea.
No, you can't have them. I booked them for my festival. You got to book somebody else.
All right, fine. Then
I'm putting in a clause where they're not going to play your festival. They are exclusive to mine because I want everybody to pay the money for my festival. I don't want them to go to yours.
As you wish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I already booked them.
Okay.
Me and Bono are tight, yo.
Yeah. So let's see. See now this, but I'm torn. It's
just pick 3 groups.
Fine. Mumford.
Okay, that's a good call.
Oasis, provided the brothers don't kill each other.
That's Magic reuniting things, and they haven't played together in a long time. No, that's not acceptable.
Fine.
Because they might kill each other. And you don't want death on your hands at your festival.
Well, but you sign a waiver.
Well, if I can't get REM to reunite, you can't get Oasis to reunite.
All right. See, then I would get the surviving members of Rush together because they've mentioned wanting to do music with each other. Although obviously not having Neil would but would hurt things. But folks would want to hear all the old numbers and things like that. And Getty and Alex have said they want to get back together and do new music.
Okay.
And then I could go schlocky or I could go serious. I'll go serious. Joe Bonamassa. I'll put Joe Bonamassa in there as well.
Okay. What was your schlocky one?
Tenacious D. I'd have them open.
Oh, jeez.
And boom goes the dynamite.
One of the most overrated things ever. It was funny, don't get me wrong, but wow, the love for a comedy thing I've never understood. Okay, good question, though. I like it. Modiflow, FYI on IDV, from 79 to 95 to get into the second division in Ecuador. That's how long it took. They got to the first division in 2007. Style of play was developed from 07 onward. So it's been a long process, but it is paying dividends, and now it's paying more dividends, potentially. And it's just fascinating. But, yeah, they didn't need millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to teach the game the right way and develop talent the right way. It can absolutely be done. It is a process, though, and it took all that time to get there, and probably 07 is where they started really thinking about the plan, and 14, according to Modiflow, is where the youth project really went full throttle, paid off with a Copa Sudamericana win a few years later. That's big. Very, very big. Let's see. Yes, no, Kefsi, we're good. We're good on Alex Roldan. All the madness, all the things, all the craziness. John is actually posting emojis in the Twitch pitch. I'm blown away. I'm surprised he found them. Craziness. Thomas Jawin. Apparently, the CBS Paramount World Cup qualifier news is that this is official announcement of something that has been known for a while. I thought they announced it at their up fronts, though. They announced the CONCACAF deal. Maybe they didn't announce the detail about the Dominican Republic and Dominica, but we knew about the rest of it.
Yeah, I was waiting for my follow-up info. It's 2 matches today, 6 on Thursday, 4 on Saturday, and 4 on Sunday, and they'll all be on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. I mean, Paramount Plus will have this stuff. KFC said you would book Field Mob and Timbaland, and then you'd have to find another one.
I'd have to either listen to their music and know who they were to book them.
You were told to listen to their music, remember?
Ah, that's true.
Yeah. You actually, I think, did, or you made it up and you lied to us. Is that what you're telling us? You lied to us?
No,
You lied to us about Timbaland's 3 songs that you liked the best?
Incorrect.
Lied? Okay.
So, all right. So if I would have fabricated a Timbaland story.
Well, you did pick a cover of a Bowie song with Beck, which was one of the worst selections you've ever had.
And this fits to me because?
No, it fit. It was still bad. I mean, it was bad on your scale of bad.
Okay.
I'd come up with
like
150 Timbaland tracks that he's produced before I'd go to that song, at least.
Okay.
Alex Basine, if you want to see Joe Bonamassa, all you have to do is turn on a PBS pledge drive.
That is true. That is absolutely true because,
true.
And honestly, that was where he got a lot of his recent push was when he started doing his pledge drive in the Royal Albert Hall. No lie. The Royal Albert Hall special that was done for PBS was one of the highest rated across the board for both viewership and for pledge response. And so, I mean, the Royal Albert Hall special that he did was absolutely amazing. Anton Fig is one of his drummers, by the way, from the old Letterman show.
That's going to hurt your charging a big money for a post-COVID festival, though, if you can watch it on PBS over and over.
Well, but he does a bunch of different things. He'll go to a bunch of different ways of producing things. He'll do acoustics. He'll do electrics. He'll do blues. He goes to a bunch of different places.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Twice in 5 minutes.
It's exciting, man. I'm excited about this.
As Coco says, PBS down here. Not wrong.
Yeah, you went with the PBS Music Festival down here. That's correct.
It fills out Red Rocks. That's all I can say.
I guess it would. I was trying to shoot bigger than that, but okay, that's fine. Whatever. What else we have on Twitter before we finish up with your TV viewing for the rest of the day?
Well, Jason Nix started the screen cap during the read for Apolinski and Associates, came up with a screen cap, and folks have been giving their responses as to what I was actually thinking or saying with the screen cap.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I thought it was pretty funny, some of the responses that were there.
Okay.
Let's see. Abby, Abster, looked at the photo and says, what are you going to do in that accent? Or does the recipe call for salt? So
yeah, you would make that face about salt. That's true.
I would, yes. Turner Kirby, going into our discussion with Mike about competitions, Turner says that Atlanta should get into the Open Cup automatically to defend their title. They shouldn't have the trophy taken from them when they can't compete in it.
Turner Kirby's a smart man. I'm on board with this. I just want to be in the Open Cup and try to win all the trophies possible.
Yes. And Tofka, with our discussion with Mike in multiple leagues and a combined Super League, is probably going to be preparing an opus, so he decided to warn us of that.
Oh, boy. I'm afraid, Tofka.
Andrew Buccellato looked at the screen cap and came up with the caption of, "Let me get my dentures in real quick." Oh, we're already live.
Did kind of look that way, yes.
It did. And let's see. When it comes to the...
Are you doing these in chronological?
Yes.
Okay. Next time, maybe group things by topic.
I was debating to do it one way or the other.
It's usually better to group them by topic so we don't get whiplash.
Okay. And then Dan James with the last caption, along those same denture lines, he says, and that was when... And then my teeth fell out. That's how my teeth fell out. So that was, so I understand that one completely. And then Tofka with some CONCACAF thoughts really quick, and then we'll wrap us up on Twitter. He says, can we all agree that Christ should lose his job if he lets Glad or Ferreira anywhere near the field tonight? I'd almost say the same for playing Dotson or Ewell more than 30 minutes each. Start and 90 minutes each for Tessman, Perea, and Soto. I'd find a way to spell Vines, too. He's played a lot. God, I hate this 17 field players rule for 4 matches in 2 weeks.
You figure out what your lineup is going to be against an unnamed opponent, which is not easy to do, but that's what you got to do if you're Jason Kreis. You figure out who you're going to play in the semifinal. That's step one. Step two is you're not going to be able to rest all of them. Who needs 90 minutes off? Who needs to not see the field tonight? That is step two. Step three is who can play 45 or who can play 60 and manage it and manage their workload tonight. Because tonight does not matter. One bit. If they lose 10-0, I don't care. I want them to, but I don't care. This game means zip, zilch, nada, zero, nothing.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing. So... treat it as such. It's all about the semifinal. It's all about the semifinal. And if you got guys who are running on fumes, they don't need to even be dressed tonight if you can help it. If they're dressed, you're doing it just because CONCACAF told you to and you don't want to get fined. That's all. And they're going to sit at the end of the bench and they can sip on whatever lovely fruit beverage that has no alcohol in it that you want to give them, and they can look completely uninterested. They can watch the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers on Paramount Plus. I don't care. But if they're on the bench because they have to be, that's fine. Make sure you don't play guys that can't play. Like, if they're tired, they don't play. It's not about tonight. Tonight means nothing.
Zero. Bupkis. Nada.
We
Zero. Nothing.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Your schedule of games you can watch, because there are games that mean stuff today, and you can watch a lot of games from all over the place today thanks to all the different streaming partners. You do have more in Africa. You have Guinea and Mali at 12 o'clock on BN Sports. You have 1 o'clock games from Europe. Turkey and the Netherlands is a good one at 1 o'clock on ESPN+. You have a friendly that is on the ESPN app with Belarus and Honduras. That's fascinating. You do have a qualifier because Qatar is playing basically as the pace car in a group just to get games. They don't count, but it's kind of sort of a qualifier with Luxembourg. It's a game for Luxembourg to play somebody that doesn't count in the table. Okay. You got that. You have 345 games on ESPN+, Malta and Russia, Belgium and Wales, which is a good one, France and the Ukraine, which is a good one. You have Cyprus and Slovakia. You have Gibraltar and Norway. We'll talk about that in a second. You have Slovenia and Croatia. You have Latvia and Montenegro. You have Portugal and Azerbaijan from Turin, Italy. You have Estonia and the Czech Republic. You have Serbia and Ireland. You have Finland and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, the Norway game, there was a funny line today in a report. Honduras agent Jose Rodriguez warned Gibraltar about Erling Haaland, like they didn't know. Remember, Haaland scored 9 at I think it was the U20 World Cup against Honduras. Rodriguez said, I met Haaland at the airport after he put 9 past us and said he ruined our boys. He said he was angry he didn't score 11. I thought, holy ish, what a machine.
Yeah.
Jose Rodriguez is not wrong.
No.
Does Erling Haaland score more than 5 goals today?
Well, it was our prop bet for the weekly picks. You said 4.
Yeah, I think they sub him.
And that's why I said 2, because I think they sub him at the half. I think that he tries to spread it around a little bit. Juice boxes, what do you think?
Gibraltar is plus 30,000.
Plus 4,700.
Should be 30,000.
Norway's a minus 5,000.
Don't even throw anything at it. What's the over-under number?
Okay.
That's the only thing that could get interesting.
And there's some other interesting numbers in the 345s as well. The over-under goes all the way up to 9.5 at plus 2,500.
I would be more tempted about something like that. If I was going to get really stupid with a juice box, what's the over-under at 6.5?
Plus 383.
I could see Norway 7-0. I could see something like that. That's where I'd probably draw the line. If I had to throw a juice box at that game, that's what I would do.
Yeah. 6.5 is plus 383, 7.5 plus 742, 5.5 a plus 196.
Madness. Other games on the rest of the day, and yes, this is where Paramount Plus comes into play. You've got the Dominican Republic and Dominica at 7 o'clock. You've got Guatemala and Cuba at 8 o'clock. That is also on Peacock in Spanish, because that was another bit of news that has come out. Telemundo has rights to things in Spanish in CONCACAF, and they're going to put more things on Peacock than they have before. So you've got Guatemala, Cuba on Peacock and Paramount Plus. Peacock Spanish, Paramount Plus in English. It's going to be a little weird. You do have Mexico and the United States on FS1 tonight. The first game is also meaningless in that group. We're not even going to get into it because both teams are eliminated. Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic. That's on FS2. I'm sorry, FS2. You have a meaningless game. That's the games on TV for you. CONCACAF really quickly so you kind of know what's happening here. This is the start of the first round of World Cup qualifying. 30 teams divided into 6 5-team groups. You're not playing home and away. You're playing 4 games. You're playing everybody once. 2 in March, 2 in June, each during the international windows. The 6 group winners are paired off. They meet in the second half of June. The winners of those pairs will advance to the octagonal with the 5 that are already there. So it's 30 teams that are going to play 4 games. You're going to get down to 6. Each of the group winners go through. Then they're paired up. Those 3 go in to make a group of 8 that is a home and away, that you're going to play 14 games to get to the World Cup. And the top 3 will go. The 4th one will go into a playoff against somebody from another confederation. Group A, El Salvador would have gotten into the Hex in the old format. They do not. So they have to do this to get through. The playoff thing in late June with the group winners, that is home and away. There's 2 games there. So 4 games, you win your group, then you go into a home and away to get into the octagonal. El Salvador, probably a little ticked off. They would have been in the Hex in the old format. They go into Group A. They play Thursday against Grenada. 10,000 tickets have been put on sale in El Salvador for that one. You've got a lot of players with a lot of different countries in CONCACAF that are in disputes over money, which is not new in CONCACAF, but it's worse now because there's less money to deal with because you're coming off of a pandemic. So some of these teams will not be at full strength, and this will determine their potential World Cup futures. Because if they get into the octagonal, they're going to get 7 home games, and they would expect to be able to get people in the building for those. And 2 of them are going to be against Mexico and the United States, which should draw really, really well. So it's a big deal. But, and El Salvador is a prime example of this, they're missing 6 veteran players because they failed to reach an agreement with the Salvadoran Federation on the terms of the bonuses for this first stage. Rodolfo Zelaya, who played for LAFC. He's one of these guys. They could use him. Not going to have him. Montserrat is one to keep an eye on. They used to be the worst team in the world. They've actually benefited from this new CONCACAF situation of playing all these games with Nations League, and they've actually played a lot, and they've won a decent bit. Like, they've really moved up. Now, they've also added a lot of players who have ties to the island but have moved on to play elsewhere or grown up elsewhere. It's an island of 6,000 people, but they've won 5 of their last 10. All right. They've lost 3 all to El Salvador. So they're probably not going to get out of this group. It'd be unbelievable if they did, but El Salvador should get through the group. Also in the group, you have Antigua and Barbuda. You have the U.S. Virgin Islands as well. That's your 5 teams in the group. Group B, Canada. And they tried to keep it a surprise as long as they possibly could about what their roster would look like. They finally announced it. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good roster. I don't know what the big deal was. They play Bermuda. It is a home game for Canada in Orlando. We know the issues with crossing the border and all that. They do have Alphonso Davies. They do not have Jonathan David unless that changed. Did that change? They were not going to have him, but we did see some changes to the rules, and France was one country that did change some of their things. So check that for me. They might have been able to get him at the last minute. Group B, also, in addition to Canada and Bermuda, has Aruba, Suriname, and the Cayman Islands. Canada should cruise here. They should absolutely cruise. John is efforting.
Yes, John is efforting, but also a quick word from Stephen Goff. Full MLS schedule slated to be released sometime today, he is told.
Oh, very cool. That's exciting. I can set up my calendar for the year, at least part of it anyway. I don't have the USL one just yet. But it's getting there. It's getting there. And yes, he tweeted it out. If you don't know Stephen Goff, at Soccer Insider on Twitter, but also one of the best soccer writers in the country for the Washington Post. He is told it's coming out later today. So stay tuned to that. Still checking on Jonathan David, aren't you?
Still checking on Jonathan David. Okay. And if you want to read up on Montserrat, Michael Lewis posted an article over at Front Row Soccer. You can find out about Montserrat and their recent gains.
Coco, yes, secrecy makes the roster inherently better. Absolutely. Kefsi, the AFCON, it's not World Cup qualifiers. It is for the African Cup of Nations. It's the qualifiers. They are on the BN family of networks, and they have some of the games on today, but not all of them. Same with CONCACAF. Not all of them are going to be on Paramount Plus, but some of them are. Like Suriname and the Cayman Islands is not going to be on Paramount Plus. That is today in Group B. Canada, Bermuda tomorrow. It will be on Paramount Plus. It will be on Peacock in Spanish. It's an 8 o'clock kick from Orlando. Canada, in their other game in this window, they will play the Cayman Islands in Bradenton, Florida, and that will be on both Paramount Plus and Peacock Premium at 4 o'clock on the 28th. Still checking, huh? Still checking. Aruba and Suriname will be on Paramount Plus on March 27th at 8 o'clock. That is this group, at least for the games in March. I'm going to move on to the next group, John, and I was hoping you'd have an answer.
No update on Jonathan David being a part of the roster, so I would say no.
Have you seen the Canadian roster? Do you have that?
Yeah, I'm buzzing through it, and he's not in it.
Okay, there you go. That's all we needed to know. Group C, Curacao is the favorite here. Gus Hiddink is their manager. That whole thing was kind of weird. It sounds like he kind of came in and took it from somebody else, which is a strange story. But Curacao, with a world-renowned manager, they got to the quarterfinals of the 2019 Gold Cup. Aloy Room, Columbus Crew, goalkeeper, got the job in Columbus based off what he did in the Gold Cup and what he was doing before with Curacao, and in the Netherlands as well. They have added a player, Vernon Anita, who has 3 caps for the Netherlands, was on their preliminary roster for the 2010 World Cup. Those caps were in friendlies, so you're able to make the switch. He's 31 now, but I mean, he almost went to the 2010 World Cup on a team that went to the final. Cuba is in this group. Cuba, soccer there has been shut down since March of 2020. They have 11 foreign-based players, which I believe this is the first competition that Cuba has done that in modern times with foreign-based players. They have never done that in the past. Jorge Corrales is one who is with FC Tulsa in the USL Championship. He played in MLS, played for Chicago. Cuba is an underdog today when they go to Guatemala. That's going to be Paramount Plus and Peacock, 8 o'clock. Cuba plays Curacao in the other game this month, which is going to be very difficult. That will be played in Guatemala. That will not be in Cuba. Guatemala has played 6 friendlies in the last 6 months. They have won their last 2 against Cuba. They should win today. All of the March games are played in Curacao or Guatemala. You also have the British Virgin Islands and St. Vincent and the Grenadines in this group as well. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been a difficult out in the past. I don't know what they have now, but it should be Guatemala's group. Group D, Panama. Let's see what happens here. They went to the last World Cup. It was kind of the end of a generation for them. It feels like there's been a drop-off in talent for Panama. They're in a group with, I mean, it's manageable. It's the Dominican Republic, who is making big strides, as you've seen from their U23s. Dominica, the Barbados, and Anguilla. That's this group. You've got games being played in Fort Lauderdale in this group. Should be Panama, but maybe this is one where there's a surprise. Anibal Godoy from Nashville is in the Panamanian team. Only 2 Panamanians currently play in MLS. Godoy's the only one who is with this group. It should be Panama. I'd be surprised if it's not. But Dominican Republic's one to keep an eye on. They feel like they've really started to put together a good program, and it's starting with developing young players. They could be different. Group E, you do have a game that is canceled. Nicaragua and St. Lucia is not going to get played on Thursday. St. Lucia it hasn't been announced yet. I don't think that they're withdrawing, but the game on Sunday against Haiti is not expected to be played either, so that's where you're at. You knew this would happen, right? Haiti is the team to watch in this group. They play Belize tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We mentioned it yesterday. Belize was stopped at gunpoint, leaving the airport, going to the hotel. Crazy situation. Dion McCauley, who plays for Atletico Atlanta, formerly Jinga Atlanta of the UPSL, played formerly for the Atlanta Silverbacks. He's with the group. He's one of their captains. He's got a lot to do to try to get their heads right to play a game against Haiti tomorrow at 5 o'clock after all that happened. Belize will then play the Turks and Caicos on March 30th in the Dominican Republic. You also, so if St. Lucia drops out of this, that's your group. Nicaragua, I guess, goes through in a walkover. I want to see what CONCACAF does. I mean, if they just pull those games out, then everybody either has 3 points or you're only playing 3 games in this group. So it's CONCACAF. Who knows? They might come up with something else. Group F, Trinidad and Tobago. This whole thing with Terry Fenwick and getting beat 7-0 by the U.S., and it was kind of a thrown-together game, and then he had an altercation with TNT Football Association media officer Sean Fuentes. Local reports say that Fenwick headbutted Fuentes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Fenwick, of course, denied that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The head of the Trinidad and Tobago FA denied there was physical abuse and said that Fenwick and Fuentes made up. Okay. You had issues with the playing Puerto Rico, who is in this group. The TNT FA did not realize that U.S. COVID restrictions applied to Puerto Rico, who hosts Trinidad and Tobago on Sunday. Trinidad and Tobago Olympic authorities had to intervene to get waivers from the U.S. government for their European-based players to travel to Puerto Rico without quarantining. Yeah, they're really organized. They should get through in this group, but they're really, really well organized, as you can tell.
Yes.
Puerto Rico, yeah, totally. They might headbutt people if they don't get their way. Puerto Rico is coached by Dave Saracen. A lot of U.S.-based players are there with Puerto Rico, but they're very inexperienced. It's going to be tough for them to make the jump here. I mean, who else could make a surprise in this group if Trinidad and Tobago is headbutting people and disorganized? St. Kitts and Nevis? Maybe. Bahamas? Probably not. It should be TNT, but they're going to really try hard to not do it.
I think so, yeah.
St. Kitts and Nevis plays Puerto Rico today in the Dominican Republic. That is not on television anywhere that I can find. Maybe you can find a dodgy stream. Tomorrow, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana in the Dominican Republic. That is on Paramount Plus and Peacock Premium at 7 o'clock. Puerto Rico and Trinidad and Tobago is March 28th. That's the game. If Puerto Rico can pull anything out of that, could be an interesting group. If any of the favorites don't go through, Trinidad is the one that you have to think doesn't. Panama would be the next one that I think could be in trouble. Those are the two that I look at. The others, I think the favorites should go through, and that's why it's constructed the way it is.
Yeah, and if you want to read up on Cuba, John Arnold has an article up at the New York Times breaking down the construction of the current roster and what the Cuban national team is up to these days.
Is it John Arnold or is it somebody else?
It's John Arnold.
Okay, I couldn't remember who it was. John Arnold also, his Getting CONCACAF newsletter is
mandatory.
Yes, it is mandatory, and you have 5 games that he picked that are games to circle here. Guatemala, Cuba, which is today at 8 o'clock, Paramount Plus and Peacock. Trinidad, Tobago, and Guyana, Thursday. Biggest game of the month, and it talked about it with Trinidad and everything going on. Guyana got to the 2019 Gold Cup. Maybe they can pull the surprise here. Aruba and Suriname on Saturday at 8 o'clock. That's on Paramount Plus. Suriname with their recruitment, they could be a surprise. Montserrat and El Salvador, Sunday at 7 o'clock on Paramount Plus. John Arnold has as a must-watch. And Barbados and Anguilla on Tuesday at 7:30. That is on Paramount Plus. He said this is the obscure one to watch. Barbados has been preparing in the Dominican Republic for a little while. Russell Latipi, former Trinidad and Tobago legend, is their manager. They have some talent. They've got some talent that's playing in Europe. They could be a little bit of a surprise. So there you go. There's your CONCACAF run. It's going to be fun to watch these games. These things are crazy. I remember listening to some of these games in the early stages of World Cup qualifying because you'd find a link on like Big Soccer's message board about some radio broadcast from Barbados, and it would be just bizarre and hilarious to listen to. These are going to be fun, and they're going to be chaotic, and you're going to see crazy things. And, I mean, we saw it in the U23s where Haiti didn't get their testing done properly, and they had to start a match with 10 and without a goalkeeper. Maybe something like that happens here. Maybe Terry Fenwick headbutts somebody again. Who knows? Allegedly headbutts somebody.
Yes.
Allegedly. All right, that'll do it for us today. I'll be on with Andy and Randy on 92.9 The Game here in about 40 minutes, 12:20. Stoppage time at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, we are live at the Lost Druid in Avondale Estates. If you can join us, that would be awesome. You should be able to purchase or pick up your 2021 Soccer Down Here scarf. They should be in by then. That's what it looks like according to the tracking info. Fingers crossed. If you can't join us, totally understand. You can watch on Twitch. We will have plenty of things to get into with all the games today, with probably a lot more MLS talk, especially if we have a schedule to dig into, all kinds of stuff. So that is today. That is tomorrow. We'll be back in the morning as well. Hopefully you can join us for some or all of those things that we'll be doing over the next 48 hours. Until we see you next time, mucho platio.
Mucho platio.